Hamid El-Zoheiry, Angelo Riccaboni, and then there will be also welcome words by the Commission, on behalf of the Commission, Jesus ALQUEZAR. And later on, we'll start with the sessions, but I'll introduce later on the sessions after the welcome words. So first of all, Angelo Riccaboni. Angelo, do you want to please?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Just a few words. I am under the rain in Rome, in a very Bruxelles weather, but I'm very pleased to welcome everybody joining this Infoday. We are very pleased of the participation, and your participation has been one of the levers of success of PRIMA. So I'm very pleased on behalf of the BOT, the Board of Trustees, to say that we have had very recently the publication of the second interim assessment report by the Commission, and the results are very good. There is a very good attention and also appreciation of the work done by PRIMA PRIMA Foundation in implementing its plan. So great results, and we are very pleased of that in terms of research innovation, but also in terms of scientific diplomacy, which is a topic that today we really need. So now we are working for the future. Probably the people participating to this meeting, this Infoday will be informed in the next few months about the direction that PRIMA is taking, and we want to have a successful PRIMA 2, and we count on your support and your suggestions. Just to finish, I would like to thank Octavi Quintana Tria for the work done in these years, because as many of you know, Octavi is ending his term with us, and it was great to have him with us, and really appreciated what he did. Also, Omar is another colleague who's ending his term with us, and I would like to also thank Omar for his valuable contribution. So thanks a lot. You did a lot, and you made PRIMA a successful initiative. Thanks, and back to you, Octavi.
Thank you very much. And let me hand over to Hamid El-Zoheiry. Hamid.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Octavi. I have a pleasure to welcome you all to this PRIMA Infoday for 2026 work program as the co-chair. And I also would like to give you a few words about PRIMA. I'm sure all of you know it, but PRIMA has really grown into a powerful platform for Euro-Mediterranean collaboration. We have mobilized in the past years over €500 million, more than 500 million euros along the 3 sections, and more than 400 along the section 1 and 2. We supported hundreds of research and innovation projects across water management, sustainable agriculture, and food systems. And those projects are not only advancing our scientific knowledge, but also delivering tangible solutions, enhancing resilience, and promoting sustainability and improving livelihoods across the region. What makes PRIMA truly unique is its ability to bring together diverse actors, so from researchers, innovators, policymakers, and communities from both sides of the Mediterranean in a process of co-partnership, of co-ownership, and on a basis of equal footing. This diversity is not just a strength, but it is essential, because the challenges we face, like climate change, water scarcity, and food insecurity, are deeply interconnected and require integrated and context-sensitive responses. The success of previous calls demonstrate the vitality and relevance of this partnership. We have seen outstanding proposals, strong participation from a wide range of participants, and an increasing focus recently now on impact and scalability. These achievements give us confidence as we move forward. And yet, the urgency of our mission has never been greater. Looking ahead, our focus must be on reinforcing the link between research and real-world application. We need solutions that are not only scientifically sound, but also socially inclusive, economically viable, and environmentally sustainable. We must empower local communities, support young innovators, and ensure that knowledge is translated into actions. Today's Info Day is an important step in that journey. It's an opportunity to explore new calls, exchange ideas, and build the collaborations that will shape the next generation of PRIMA projects. So I encourage you all to engage actively, to think boldly, and to continue working together towards a more sustainable, resilient, and inclusive Mediterranean. And I also add my voice to Angelo Riccaboni to thank the Secretariat, especially Octavi, Quintana, and Omar Amawi, for all their efforts in the previous years. This is what really made PRIMA projects impactful. And now we have a very good procedure for PRIMA that I think has been commended by all actors. And this is thanks to them and, of course, their team at the Secretariat of PRIMA. So I really commend their efforts and thank them very much for their professionalism and dedications. And thank you all for your participation, and I wish you a productive and inspiring day.
Thank you very much, Hamid, for your kind words. And let me give the floor to Jesus Alquezar on behalf of the European Commission. Jesus.
Thank you very much, Octavi. Thank you very much for inviting me to this Info Day. First of all, I want to welcome all the participants. I see there are many to this Info Day, which I think confirms the interest of PRIMA amongst the research and innovation communities in both sides of the Mediterranean. Before starting this very short presentation, I hope I'm going to be so synthetic as my predecessors in this event. Let me say some details about this interim evaluation that Angelo already introduced. You probably know that the Commission published exactly the same day this annual work program of PRIMA and the interim evaluation of PRIMA. And as Angelo explained, this evaluation was, I would say, very positive. So it's clear that PRIMA has become a pillar of science and water diplomacy for the EU and the Mediterranean region. And especially if we compare with its budget, which is rather limited compared with the challenges, the magnitude of the challenges that PRIMA wants to tackle, PRIMA is demonstrating a very efficient use of money in terms of the cost, let's say the theoretical cost of publication and a little bit to lesser extent patents. And as I said before, PRIMA is constantly demonstrating a huge attractiveness, which has some negative aspects because the success rates are very low. But despite of these low success rates, research and innovation organizations are not demotivated and continue to apply to PRIMA funding. And I think this is really a strength of PRIMA, this capacity of mobilization of the research and innovation communities. At the same time, and I think this is important also as a key to prepare your proposals, the evaluation demonstrated or showed that there were some difficulties to identify impacts on the ground for local communities. So at the Commission, we expected that PRIMA would be able, or our assessment would be able to demonstrate that PRIMA are improving lives at local level, for example, providing clean water or more opportunities to small farmers. We are really convinced that this is happening, but we were unable to find really evidence, except some cases of projects. And this is a little bit sad because we are convinced that PRIMA can and must deliver impacts at local level, improving the lives of local people. And I would say that this work program that is going to be commented today responds pretty well, on the one hand, to the new priorities of the European Union, such as competitiveness, but is not abandoning the fundamental focus on sustainability and even on the social component. You can observe, if you look carefully at the topics that are going to be presented, in particular under section 1, that we expect high TRLs. This, of course, responds to this strong focus that I mentioned of the Commission on innovation and competitiveness, but also to the need to deliver solutions that are impactful on the ground. So I would like to finalize this short intervention with a recommendation. We observe in many projects, and not only for PRIMA, so under most of our EU funding instruments, that solutions delivered are hardly assessing the cost and benefits from an economic and social point of view. So we know that our research and innovation projects deliver solutions, but we don't know what is the cost. And this is a very important element to convince investors for further uptake. So we have to demonstrate to these potential investors that want to deploy solutions that our solutions are really worth investing in, and especially compared with alternatives in the market. So I would recommend to successful projects to make this assessment, and of course to report on the impacts of their demonstrations, pilots, etc. at local level. So I wish you a fruitful meeting and success with your proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jesus, for your words. And I'm sure that everybody has listened very carefully what you said, especially concerning this applicability of the and feasibility of the solutions proposed by PRIMA projects. Thank you very much. And let's go now to the more technical, if you wish, or thematic part of our session today. So there will be now for almost 45 minutes or 50 minutes, we'll have the presentation of each of the sessions, of the themes, and they will be presented by our colleagues here, the project officers, namely, first of all, Ali Rhouma, then there will be Fabrice Dentressangle, Marco Orlando, Ede Demir, and Mohamed Wageih. So they will present each of them one theme, and you will be able to ask questions through the QA box. Please only use the QA box for questions, and you will receive the answers on the spot. So as you proceed, there will be the responses given to you. So we'll try to make that as flexible and agile as possible. Then we'll have a break of 10 minutes so around 11:50 to noon. And then there will be 5 sessions on what we have every year, but the submission and evaluation of proposals by Fabrice Dentressangle, how to write a good proposal, and these will be Mohamed Wageih. Call management rules and conditions will be our legal officer, Julia Rebes. Then we'll have the session on KPIs that will be done by our monitoring officer, Itzel Lopez. And finally, we'll have a session on the budget overview and how to create the budget. That will be done by the financial manager, Guell. So please don't hesitate to ask as many questions as you wish. In the end, if there are questions that still you need to ask or to clarify, which have not been answered through your box to the QA box will have a little bit of time to ask these questions and to have the responses in case they are still needed. We are planning to close the session this morning at 1:30, 1:20, 1:30. Let me remind you that this session, this Infoday, is recorded, so you will have access to it at a later stage if you so wish, or you want to share it with someone else. The session is recorded, and I hope that it will be very fruitful. Of course, I encourage you to submit your proposals and in the frame of what our colleagues will tell you. The rest of the session will be led by my colleague, the Deputy Director, Omar Amawi, sitting next to me. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Ali Rhouma to start his presentation. Ali?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Ali, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to have so many of you today connected from across the Mediterranean. I'm delighted to see that more than 1,500 participants are joining us, which is, I think, a strong sign of interest in PRIMA and our calls. Thank you so much for taking this time to be with us today. Let me, before we do a deep dive into the topics, I would like to brief you and provide you an overview of PRIMA, what has been funded so far, and the main novelties of the 2026 calls. So since 2018, PRIMA has mobilized a total of 460 million euro across the two sections, Section 1 and Section 2. This investment has supported so far 305 funded projects involving 1,860 beneficiaries across the Mediterranean, which is very important. The number of beneficiaries across the Mediterranean from the south and the north. So this year, 2026, we will continue as usual, under the Horizon Europe as last year. We will use the same eligibility rules. Each consortium may include at least 4 partners from a minimum of 3 countries, with at least 2 partners from the Southern Mediterranean countries. And for innovation action, very important, at least 1 SME, short and medium enterprise, must be included in the consortium. So this year, the total budget for Section 1 is around 33.5 million euro, which will fund 12 projects and 1 CSA coordination and support action. So under the Section 2, participating countries have committed a little bit more than the Section 1, around 36.3 million euro, with the ambition to fund around 25 projects. So this year, the calls will follow 2-stage submission processes, except for the CSA, the coordination support section, which will be evaluated in 1-step procedure. So the novelty of the CSA here is the limited number of pages. So we will have 25 pages before it was 30, and for the other calls it will be 28 for the lump sum. But for us, it will be around 25 pages for the CSA. So a new highlight this year is the PRIMA Young Innovator Award 2026. This initiative aims to recognize and support the young people from the Southern Mediterranean countries who are, driving practical impactful solution for sustainability. 2 prizes will be awarded to initiatives that demonstrate the strong local relevance, tangible impact, and the potential to scale, while also promoting youth leadership, inclusion, and inspiration for the future innovator, particularly women. But it's open for the young innovator, and this is a new, award for 2026. So, having said that, let's go to the topics. And the first topic is the water in the Nexus, and I'll share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Yes, so the first topic, it's about the water management and the nexus. So in this topic, we are targeting a very important non-conventional water resource, which is the brackish water. For the French speaker, is the les eaux saumâtres. So decentralized brackish water desalination for the climate resilient and resolution efficient Mediterranean agriculture. So this call comes with 10.58 million euro with 4 projects expected to be funded. So the proposal should start from at least TRL 5 to achieve higher TRL 7 to 8 by the end of the project, which demonstrates the innovation component of this call. So the submission procedure, this code will follow the 2-stage submission processes. So last year it was one step, and this year we are following the 2 steps. And the deadline to apply is set for the 15th of May, 2026. Please save this date, and it's 1 p.m. Central European Time or Barcelona time. So before I deep dive into this topic and present the expected outcomes and what is required from you, I would like to share with you some words about the brackish water in the Mediterranean. So as you may know, the brackish water is broadly defined as water that has more salinity than fresh water, but not too as much as the seawater. It's in between, the fresh water and the seawater. And as you know, the brackish, this the word brackish comes from the Middle Dutch origin. So brack means salinity. So the brackish water is originated from 2 origins. It could be natural, origin, in particular from the coastal aquifer or the inland aquifers, but also it could be from the surface aquifers. So here, as if you dig a well with 4 to 5 grams per liter in the groundwater, so this is basically the brackish water. But also it could be caused by human-induced brackish water, in particular in the coastal region where we have an excessive groundwater pumping. So this excessive groundwater pumping will lead to saltwater intrusion, and this will lead to brackish water along the coastal Mediterranean region. And we are witnessing so far a lot of issues regarding the salinity in the coastal areas. Another important activity of the human is the agricultural drainage. So this will yield to saline return flows, which will provide the brackish water. So depending on the context, it could be natural, it could be also human-induced brackish water resources. So as you know, in the Mediterranean, the brackish water has been used directly for irrigation. But depending on the salinity, we have witnessed several negative impacts, in particular in the soil with the accumulation of salty. But there's another way to to valorize this brackish water is through the desalination. So this sector, we have a lot of opportunities in the Mediterranean because we have this potential of brackish water. As I said, with this intrusion, in particular in the coastal area, now we have a potential of brackish water, but also in the inland as well. Another important potential is the salinity. As I said, the salinity is much less than the seawater. So the fact the salinity is less, this will provide us to have less energy to do desalination, and this is very important and a potential for us to provide an affordable solution for the small farmers. However, these opportunities comes with challenges. The brine, when you desalinate, we have the brine, disposal, and you need to manage the brine because, in particular, when you are in land, this will be an issue for the ecosystem. The energy, yes, of course, we have less energy than discerning the seawater, for instance, but still we need energy, not only for desalination, but also if you are pumping, you need energy. Another important, challenge is the lack of some nutrient like the calcium, magnesium, and the sulfate, which is very important for the soil health and the crop productivity. So we have opportunities, important opportunities, but we have challenges with the desalination of brackish water. So what we expect from this call, and this is basically what the project will deliver once the project is over. So first off is the first outcome is really centered on the farms. So here the idea is to improve the access to water through solutions that are affordable, adapted to the local realities. So here we need to secure water in a more resilient and cost-effective way. So I think Jesus have highlighted the cost-effective, and here we highlighted the cost-effective way, because behind this is the adoption of the solutions. The second outcome is the low energy desalination solution. As you know, here, and we have the Nexus, because the fact to do desalination with pumping, we need energy, and here we need to demonstrate on the ground the scalability and the low energy desalination solution, which will be adapted to the conditions with circular brine management. The third outcome goes one step further. It's about not about only producing the water, but it's about to contribute to a more resilient and circular agriculture model. So in other words, if I can say, the need is to produce water, but to reduce the environmental footprints while generating this water for agriculture. The fourth outcomes here is about producing the knowledge that goes beyond the project itself. So the idea here is to generate evidence and lesson learned that can support policy dialogue and help to share the regulation to contribute to a better framework for the non-conventional water, because as you know, the brackish water are considered as non-conventional water. And the final outcome here is about turning innovation into lasting impact. So in other words, what I can say, the proposal should show how the solution developed can make can go more beyond the project and find the place in the real world through viable business model, and also to a strong market impact with the involvement of the key actors that can help to bring them to the scale. So these are the outcomes that the project should deliver, but how to attain these outcomes, because the outcomes will have, of course, an impact in the future. So to attain this complexity, and this is basically the scope of this goal. So first off, the program should develop and pilot decentralized brackish water desalination system tailored for agriculture reuse. This is very important. The low cost, again, of desalination is very crucial, and is linked to the the adoption by the farms. We expect here is to propose solutions that are practical, affordable, and suited to local farming system in the Mediterranean. And through this pilot, through this demonstration site, you need to test, validate, renewable energy powder distillation in different agroecological contexts. Here you see the importance of the energy, and we would like to, move to the renewable energy to power distillation to reduce the cost, because always here the issue of the distillation, the cost is crucial. So the third, activity that's very important is the when we are building on the pilot system that you have developed, the next step is to assess the economic feasibility and the farm acceptance. This is very important. It's only about the economic, but also the acceptance by the farms. This means that you have to evaluate whether the proposed solution are not technically effective, but also it could be economically feasible and could be adopted easy by the small farmers in particular. The activity number 5, which is very important here, as you know, this topic, it's on the heart of the water energy food ecosystem nexus. And for sure, you will have different trade-offs, because the fact to do the desalinations, you will generate the brine, you will have an impact on the ecosystem, and you need, to tackle all these issues through different indicators to focus on the environmental footprints, in particular the water, energy, and carbon footprints. Another important, activity of the scope is to develop a scalable business and financial model to ensure the economic viability and the long-term sustainability of the solution. This is very important as well if we think to scale up after when the project is closer. Another important activity of the scope is to create the condition for the long-term sustainability, and this is very important to be through different guidelines, toolkits that to design the scaling of the sustainable destination, and this could be very important for the policymakers, and can support the future expansion of the sustainable destination solution in different local conditions of the Mediterranean. So now that we have seen the different activities, so there are also cross-cutting dimensions that deserve particular attention in this call. And as you can see here, I put in the center the consideration of the interlinkages of the resource, the water energy food ecosystem nexus, as it is a topic in the heart of the nexus. We need to see the interlinkages of the resources, because the fact to think about only the desalination and to forget maybe the impact and the other resources, this will lead us to different trade-offs. And if we will have trade-offs, we are not on the sustainability. So we need to focus more on this integrated management of the different resources and look at the trade-offs. The multi-actor approach is very important. As I said, you need to engage all the key actors, SMEs, researchers, authorities, and in particular, you see the SMEs. So it's mandatory to have an SME in your consortium. But this is not only the SMEs, but also you need to involve other key partners that could work together for the to have tangible outcomes by the end of the project. The societal and the interdisciplinary, this is also you need to consider to integrate the technical and the socioeconomic with the social, component. The social component is very crucial, because what we would like to have by the end of the project solution that could be accepted by the end users, by the farmers. So the social component here is very, very relevant. Replication and scaling also is a key important component of the that you need to consider in your project. You have to establish a clear foundation for replication and scaling up across the Mediterranean. The last but not least, the market uptake, and this should be after when the project is over, but you have to think about it, and you need to establish a credible market uptake pathway with the involvement of the party, in particular the SMEs, but also the end user, which are very relevant for the sustainability of the solutions. So before I end up, I would like to share with you 3 important components. Here, the key performance indicators. As you know, we have now a handbook that is published in our website. So please have a look to this handbook, and you can maybe select 3 key performance indicators, at least 3. But of course, you are free to use other key performance indicators. The key performance indicators should be linked to your specific objective, and also it should be linked to the key impact pathway. The fact to have this key impact pathway, this will lead us to demonstrate how your project is contributing to the different sustainable development goals. Here I have mentioned the some SDGs 6 to 7 and 8, but of course, depending on your project, you can also target different other SDGs or the same SDGs, but think about also the targets of the SDGs, not only the SDGs. Regarding the EU policies also, but non-EU policies also, you need to see the link of your project to the EU policies or non-EU policies. In the Mediterranean, you have to look at the national policies, regional policies, European policies. Here I have mentioned some of them, in particular the European Water Resilience Strategy or the Vision for Agriculture and Food. But of course, feel free to consider if you have any other relevant policies you may, consider in this in your proposal. So having said that, I wish you a successful, proposals. And if you have any question, please reach out to me through this address email, and wish you all the best. Over to you, Omar.
Thank you so much, dear Ali. A very detailed presentation, very important information shared with the participants. And let me highlight here that Ali has just shared the main ingredients for putting together the idea for a successful proposal to be submitted to PRIMA. So again, thank you so much for sharing this information. Although it was a very short time, but I guess you have covered the most important information that all applicants or potential applicants need to consider when applying or when thinking about putting together again a proposal for PRIMA. Let me remind again that the questions are available through the Q&A option on this screen, and that this presentation is recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel very shortly after the finish of this info day. So in case you need to return to it, feel free, and the information will be there. So from water management, moving to farming systems, and I think we go to the next topic now that will be presented by colleague Fabrice. Fabrice, the floor is yours, please.
Thanks a lot, Omar. Just before starting, I want to insist on the Q&A box. Please only use it for questions, because if not, we are receiving a lot of messages and we are not able to reply to you. So it's very important, if you want to have a clear answer, first also watch and hear our presentation on the topic. It's very important. And there is another session after about all the eligibility criteria, all the submission system, etc. So the practical question will be also dealt later on. So please just be a little bit patient, and I'm sure you will have the majority of the answer by following the info day. And if it's not the case, of course, we are more than happy to reply to your question in the Q&A boxes. Also, a very small highlight on the eligibility criteria, because this is something that we are seeing in the Q&A. You will have a presentation, a special presentation on that in session 3 at 12:30. But just to remind you what is important to participate, you need a consortium of 3 different countries, PRIMA countries, at least one EU, at least one non-EU country. And here we don't need just 3 partners, we need 4 partners, and 2 of them must be from countries in the south. They can be in the same country or 2 different countries, but 2 partners must be from the south. This is very, very important and key to be eligible and to be able to participate in this call. And last point, of course, an SME for all the innovation action is requested. So yeah, this was the small highlight before starting. And so now I'm pleased, I will present you the topic of the farming this year, the farming system in the Nexus. So this year we are focusing on the animal sector, let's say. The title of the call, it's the next generation of sustainable and alternative animal feeds for circular and resilient Mediterranean farming system. Sorry, it's a very small technical problem. Slide. Yes. Okay. Okay, so sorry, there is a formatting issue, but so I'm coming back to this topic. It's an innovation action. So as Ali already explained, innovation action, we are looking for projects that will deliver a result on the ground, very high TRL, 6 to 7. So expected at the end of the project. So we are close to the marketing step. This is important to have in mind. So really, we expect project that will provide concrete solution on the ground for the people and the users. This year, we have a budget of 10.8 million euros. We expect to fund 4 projects, meaning an average budget per project of 2.7 million euros. The call deadline is the 15th of May, 13 CET, Barcelona time. Next one. So why this call on alternative feed? It's because the context when we are looking at what is happening, farmers and breeders have a lot of problem to feed and rear their animals. There is a lack of availability of feeds, of local feeds, especially due to several factors. One of them can be the resource overexploitation, the bad management, so maybe some overgrazing, some high numbers of animals, the density is too high, but it can also be, all this can be, of course, exacerbated by the effect of the climate change. Climate change are provoking very extreme events, so extreme and prolonged drought, for example, and so there is nothing to give to the animal to feed them. It can be also the floods that are affecting the availability of the forage or whatever. So in the end, the farmers and the breeders have to buy the food, the feeds for their animals, and they buy this on the international market. So they are subjected to a very volatile price, changing price, and the budget or the cost of this feed represent a very high percentage of investment for the farmers, and sometimes it's become too costly in reality to buy these feeds, and the farmers are abandoning the rearing of the animals. So this is not sustainable for the farmers, and moreover, these feeds that are bought by the farmers are generally produced outside of Europe with non-sustainable practices. Mainly they are soy-based, or for fish they are oil-based or cereal-based, and all this is participating to the destruction of the biodiversity. And as they are imported, their high carbon footprint is exacerbated by the importation that is producing green gas emission and contamination. So it's not sustainable for the farmers, it's not sustainable for the planet. So this is why we are proposing this call this year. What we are expecting, these are the expected outcomes. So what the project should deliver at the end, we are expecting project that will reduce the dependence of imported animal feed. This is very important to have local solution, local option to feed the animals. We are expecting that to be supported by demonstration activities, knowledge sharing, capacity building, and of course to obtain policy support that is important. Not the easiest part, but it's important. As I was saying, we are keen to have locally produced feed. So we push you to use local available waste to valorize in reality all the food waste and the agri-food waste that we can have, to valorize them, to transform them into feed, so we can minimize the loss of water, energy, or nutrient, everything, all what has been invested to obtain this food, and that is just throw out without any valorization. So this is very important to be connected to the local chains. The goal, of course, is always to reduce the overall impact of this food, of this feed. We have seen it, they are imported, they destroy the biodiversity, etc. So it's important to have very resource use efficiency solutions that are efficient in the use of the resources, and that are following the circular economy principle and the sustainable agricultural principle. So this is important. Methane emission, of course, are key be in these sectors. Obviously, the output, the result of the project will be a new feed, something that you will give to the animals. So the first step is to be sure that this is safe for the animals. So we encourage you also to look at that and to have feeds that can improve animal health and welfare, the productivity, and it should be, of course, affordable, because if your solution is not affordable, it will not be adopted by the users, and it's a pity and a loss of time and money. So how to reach that? We suggest some activities in the work plan, in the call text. There are 5 of them here that are listed, and you can have them in the call text. You have to pick at least 3 of these activities. This is mandatory in this call, so you can combine them as you want and have your own one, of course. So one of these suggested activities is to co-develop and optimize the feed formulation based on regionally available waste. So it can be any type of waste from the agricultural sector, but from bakeries, from restaurants, for whatever that can be transformed, reused, and valorized. This is what we are looking for. And be sure, of course, that the transformation that you are doing is safe. You have to take into account the digestibility, the safety of the product, and be compliant with the EU and national laws. This is very important. Another type of activity is to test and validate the feed production. I said it's an innovation action, so we are looking for something very applied. So we ask you to test this in near real environment with the living lab approach, demonstration site. So how you will produce, how you will give it to the animals also, all the practical aspects have to be investigated here. One obvious point, we were saying it, you will give this to the animals, so we have to be sure that it is safe for the animals and safe for the human consumption, or in the product derived from the animals, so the meat, the milk, etc., that are not affected negatively by the new feed you will develop. Something that has been stressed by my colleague Ali and also by the introduction, the European Commission conduct environmental and economic assessment. This is very important. So we insist your solution should be affordable, but it's important to have a cost-benefit analysis to show to the people that your solution is maybe better, cheaper than the existing solution, because we are in a market that is already existing. The feed of animals exists and is active, so you have to compare your solution to what is existing. So we also expect to have LCA analysis, life cycle analysis, and to fulfill the circularity, the circular economic principle. As we are in an innovation action, I really insist on that, and we are close to the marketing stage. It's important to develop strategy to scale up your solution and to commercialize your product. So by developing, of course, business and financing model, and trying also maybe to attract some potential investor to involve all the people in the value chain can help you. So these are the activities that are proposed to reach that. Of course, you can see it's not a pure research project here that we are looking for. So you have to adopt the multi-vector approach. Here, I will be quick because Ali has explained all this aspect, and they are common to all our innovation action. So multi-vector approach with different profile, different background. The people must work together. Here, the SME involvement is mandatory. So we are looking at real applied solution, and this is why also it's requested to develop your project with a living lab approach or under real condition. One aspect that should be touched also in your project is to have something about the gender dimension, some activities maybe that are dedicated to young and women to empower them in the region. This is very important. The integration of socio-economic and human science, of course, it's linked to that, but also to the competitiveness of the project. So don't neglect this part. It's very important, and be sure to have a straight pathway impact. is very important. Here, I will be very quick because this is almost the same slide that has presented Ali. So KPIs, we have a guideline for KPIs. You will have a presentation on that just after in the second session. You have to pick 3 KPIs from the PRIMA guidelines. And you have to be sure to be aligned also with the EU policy. So some of them are listed here, but also your national policy. And show in your proposal how you will contribute to the Sustainable Developmental Goal. So some of them, again, here are listed, but you are free to pick the one that are corresponding better to the project you will develop. So if you have any question, of course, we will be pleased to answer. And thank you very much. I will pass the floor to Omar again.
Thank you so much, Fabrice. Again, another detailed presentation, more ingredients for a successful proposal and successful content, explaining the context, the scope, what's expected. So all this information is very important and hopefully very helpful for you to, again, build a good idea for a successful proposal. So we move forward now and we move to the food value chain presentation by Mohamed.
Thank you so much, Omar. Okay, good morning to all of you. Thanks a lot for joining us for this very important event of the year, which is the PRIMA Infoday for the call 2026. I am Mohamed, the PRIMA Project Officer responsible for the agri-food value chain. And this year as well, I'm responsible for the PRIMA Award for Young Innovators. So in the next few minutes, I will take you in a quick journey on the topic for section 1 for this year, which is talking about, it's an innovation action, talking about the sustainable on-site transformation of the perishable Mediterranean agri-food products. It is a section 1 and it is an innovation action. And I think after the 2 first presentations, you are getting more familiar with what we are talking about innovation action. So it means that we are addressing a high technology readiness level, and I will come to this later. This is a 2-stage submission, unlike the previous year. So don't be confused that in the first deadline on mid of May, you need just to submit the concept proposal or the concept note or the pre-proposal. And on the afternoon session, we will go to the details of this template and how to fill the PRIMA application, like some tips and tricks on how to draft it. As my colleagues already previously mentioned that, please consider the deadline. It's at 1 p.m. Central European time. So this is the summary of the topic for this year for section 1. It is, as my colleagues already mentioned, it is value chain, food value chain in the Nexus. So it is very important to consider the Nexus dimension in your projects and when you're drafting your idea. So it's not anymore like a vertical ideas about agri-food value chain, but it has to be extended as well to the social dimension, to the energy, and I will come to this in the next slides. The allocated budget per project, it's around 2.7 million. This is indicative. You can be a little bit higher or lower. And the allocated budget for the topic for 1.3.1, which is 10.8 million. So you can imagine that we are expect to fund 4 projects under this topic. The project duration used to be around 3 years. And it is very important here to underline the importance of the technology readiness level. Here we are expecting to have an advancement of the technology readiness level to pass from 5, for instance, and to end to 7 and 8. And here it's very important to share with you that if you go to the PRIMA website and check the PRIMA project portfolio of the previously funded projects over the years, you will find that we have funded tens of projects under section 1 with an TRL around 5 or 4 or 6 maximum. So here we are asking the coordinators and to all of you to capitalize on what have been previously funded under PRIMA or Horizon H 2020 in order to advance this technology readiness level. Also, it is very important to consider that when you are drafting your proposal or project is not a standalone, but it is part of the PRIMA, which is part of the EU strategies and policies. So it is very important to align your project with the PRIMA strategic research and innovation agenda, Here, under each topic, we have already mentioned the relevant specific objectives at the PRIMA program level. So please make sure that you align your project with the PRIMA objectives as well as with the key EU policies. So now let's go to the future part of the presentation, which is the topic itself. As you can see, as you know, that we have a great challenge in the agri-food value chain in the region, which is the food loss and waste. So for some countries, statistics told us that it's around 30 to 50% of the food loss that we are suffering from either the northern or the southern part of the Mediterranean. And this loss for sure being exaggerated with the climate pressure, such as the global warming, the high heat, the water stress, besides for sure the weak or the limited infrastructure and lots, for instance, fragile cold chain or let's say obsolete storage system and distribution processing access as well. So the aim is to, or the scope of the action for this year is to have an innovative projects or ideas that can address several feedstocks, such as the plant products, such as onion, tomato, pepper, olives, citrus fruit as well. And the aim is to improve the efficiency of the processing system, covering several operations, such as the drying, the cooling, the fermentation, as well as to increase the high value of the end products that can be reflect on increasing the income of the smallholders and the small farmers at the sites. So such as, for instance, to have, let's say, more processed food, such as dried fruit or paste or spread or fermented products that will have a higher price for the smallholders and the small farmers, and instead of like selling it as a raw product, but to sell it as a processing product. Here, as well, as I mentioned, it is very important to consider the Nexus dimension in your project. That's why we have this integration of the renewable energy, like or hybrid or off-grid processing, as is explicitly encouraged to be integrated to the processing system. Last but not least, as you know, that this is now the future and the current trend, which is to integrate the digital and AI-enabled function to the system to improve its efficiency and the quality and to have better resource efficiency. The expected outcomes and impact of the product, as you can imagine, for sure, to reduce the food loss and waste, especially when you have more challenges on the water availability as well as limitation on the infrastructure, to increase the value capture for the small farmers. So instead of or shifting from selling the raw products to have higher value for more processed food products, for sure not to forget to consider the circularity by valorizing the agro biodiversity and to valorize the byproducts within this circular models, to strengthening the livelihood of the smallholders and the small farmers, because those are the target groups of this topic. Not to forget for sure the advancement of the inclusion and to improve energy efficiency, to reduce the fossil dependency and to shift to more renewable energy sources. As my colleagues already mentioned, that for each topic we have, let's say, some predefined indicators that we are asking you to address in your proposal. So for this topic, for sure, you can imagine that one of the expected indicators is the percentage of reduction of the post-harvest losses through this integrated or targeted products, to show the energy consumption per unit, how your innovation will address this challenge. And the last one is to increase in the added value retained locally. This is the percentage at the farm level or the cooperative or the community level. In addition to this, as my colleagues already mentioned, it is very important and essential and mandatory to pick as well at least 3 PRIMA-specific indicators from the PRIMA Indicators Handbook and the Impact Pathway Handbook, because this is very important. And our colleague Itzel will cover this part extensively in the afternoon session. Last but not least, and this is very important, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we are talking about technology advancement. So we are expect that the product would start around TRL 5, and through the actions and improve the advancement of the technologies, you are going to end with TRL 7 or 8. With this, let's say, condition or type of this product, which is an innovation action, it is very important to consider the multi-actor approach and the involvement of SMEs, because we are not expecting that an academic or research organization can have a better overview about the market challenges and opportunities. That's why the role and the engagement of the SMEs, big enterprises as well, the social community actors and so on, is very important to these projects. I think this is my last slide, just to underline here, it's very important to link your project idea with some EU relevant policies and framework. Here we listed down under each one, under each PRIMA topic, the most relevant EU policies and strategies, but for sure you can go even beyond this as well and focus as well on regional initiatives or national policies and so on, and also to link your project with, let's say, more global strategies or goals, which is the SDGs. Once again, we here define the most relevant SDGs and relevant targets, and it's very important to show how your product will be a part of this puzzle in order to achieve the targets of the SDGs. Thank you so much and wish you all the best. Thank you. Back to you, Omar.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you so much. So we have listened so far to 3 presentations covering section 1 of the call, very interesting presentations. And not to repeat what has been said, let me highlight some important issues and some common issues with the 3 presentations, mainly highlighting the Nexus dimension in all the 3 topics. And you have noticed that we are talking about water management in Nexus, we are talking about farming systems in Nexus, and then we're talking about agro-food value chain in Nexus. So this is a strategic approach that has been adopted by PRIMA program more than 2 years ago within all the 3 thematic areas. Also highlighting the multi-actor approach and the importance of involving SMEs in the actions that will be funded under the PRIMA program, and to consider, of course, the advanced TRL of the action. My colleagues here mentioned that we are expecting 5, 6 to 7 or 8 TRLs, which is closer to the market innovation that we are hoping to achieve in these topics that will be funded by the program. So we are moving forward now, and I will give the floor to Marco, who will be presenting the CSA, and then we'll be talking about the topics in section 2. So Marco, please.
Thank you very much, Omar, for giving me the floor. Thank you also to the other project officers for these clear presentations. I will now present the coordination and support action, topic 1.4.1, also funded by section 1. So section 1, we'll just wait a minute till we get the presentation on the screen. Good. Okay, so as you can see, this code basically will be different from the previous one. My colleagues until now have presented innovation actions. So for those who are not familiar with this terminology, I will explain it very soon. Before we go to that, I would like to focus on the title of this call. As you can see, the main objective is the institutionalization and scaling of the Mediterranean welfare Nexus community of practice. Let me see if the remote is working. Okay. All right. So as I said, this is a bit of a different call. In fact, the budget is a bit less than what you have seen in the previous calls. We have slightly more than 1 million euros for the project to be funded by this call. I anticipated that the type of action is different. It's not an innovation action. It's not a project where we expect you to carry out research and innovation activities. It is indeed this type of call. A call that normally funds networking activities and the elaboration of policy and research agendas and so on. In this case, of course, the specific activity is the consolidation of the network, of the community of practice, the UEFA Nexus community of practice that is already existing. There is another difference because in this case, we have a single stage call. So you will submit a full application, not a pre-proposal. And for such reason, the deadline to submit your proposal is also different than the innovation actions. You will have more time to develop a full application. That is why the deadline is the 11th of June 2026. The submission platform is the same. The other rules for the evaluation as well are mostly similar. But again, I want to stress you need to prepare a full application. Right, so let's now delve into the objectives and the more technical information. As I said, the main objective is to scale, consolidate, and institutionalize the UEFA community of practice, the Mediterranean community of practice that was initiated by the UEFA Format project funded by the PRIMA Secretariat. Now, what we are looking at in this case is to have, of course, in the longer term, a sustainable mechanism, a sustainable initiative that is institutionally anchored in the relevant cooperation frameworks and that can contribute, that can facilitate to the take-up, to the, let's say yes, to the take-up of the Nexus concepts and principles in the Mediterranean region. Now, when we speak of sustainability, when we speak of uptake, of course, we need to think beyond academia and beyond the networks of researchers, because we know that they are the backbone of the community of practice. They are an integral part to it. But of course, we need the buy-in of the policymakers, of the investors. It will become a bit more clear as I go through the slides of the presentation why. And we need to involve on a regular basis different practitioners in the activities of the community of practice. So we need to extend the membership and really go beyond, silos and clusters to bring together all these different categories. I will move to the next slide. We divided expected outcomes into the short to medium term ones and the longer term ones, of course. This is an initiative. We're looking at sustainability, so we are projecting this kind of vision to the future. And it's also good to think when you're developing your proposal about this key aspect. I stress it once again, how this initiative, this community of practice can sustain itself beyond the end of the project. Okay, let's start first from the short to medium term expected outcomes. Now, as I said, we want the governance and the facilitation protocols and mechanisms of the community of practice to be strengthened, to be sustainable. That, of course, will lead, to this consolidation that we want for the community of practice. Another important thing is to give visibility to existing best practices, Nexus best practices, especially if you want to break the silos and involve as many categories as possible of stakeholders as members. We need to show the benefits of implementing the Nexus on the ground, and for such reason, we need real-world examples, demonstration cases that need to be documented, of course, using specific criteria. They need to be feasible, financially speaking, technically speaking. They need to be validated. They need to be owned by stakeholders, users. They don't just have to be, practices, for example, developed with a bottom-up approach. So, sorry, they have to be developed with a bottom-up approach with communities and so on, not top-down event. Of course, they have to be relevant to the policy frameworks and they have to be modular. What do we mean by modular? We mean that they can be transferred, tailored across the different Mediterranean contexts so that they are basically relevant to these contexts. As I said before, of course, it's also important that different types of members of the community of practice can benefit from structured learning and capacity building programs, because this will allow them to be on the same page. So again, we want to break the silos and demonstrate to all of them the value of the Nexus approach and principles. And of course, if we want to have this integration of the Nexus into the planning and management of natural resources, we also need to offer them tools for practical guidance and decision support that they have them. Now, moving to the long-term expected outcomes, again, as I said, I anticipated already this in the first slide, but again, I really need to stress this institutional anchoring, although it's difficult, you really need to think how to, of course, come up with a sustainability resource mobilization strategy that can support this anchoring into the Mediterranean research and innovation cooperation frameworks. Okay. I mentioned before investors, because yes, if we highlight best practices in the Nexus, in the implementation of the Nexus, it's also important to think of the replication across the Mediterranean, and to replicate and scale best practices in the Nexus, we need also financial resources. So this is also an important point, the mobilization of international and blended finance. And again, the let's say overarching objective is to have this progressive uptake of the WEF Nexus approaches at different scales, because we are looking at the national scale, the subnational scale, at basin level. We are working with many projects, the uptake into planning and governance processes. So we are suggesting some activities that, of course, overlap a bit with the expected outcomes, but I will go quickly to this slide. I think the main scope is very clear already from the previous ones. So strengthening the governance and facilitation model of the existing NCOP, implement peer learning and capacity building programs for the members of the COP and the different types of stakeholders that I mentioned before, to come up with a collection of lessons learned from real-world demonstration cases that can be transferred, that are practical and understandable by potential beneficiaries, and to maintain a digital hub that can support networking and knowledge sharing, to also provide selected public authorities and basin organizations with the necessary advice and support to apply Nexus principles in planning and policy processes. And once again, I stress the importance of co-developing with investors and relevant partners at institutional level, specific pathways for application and scaling. Sorry, I went back, I think. Yes, I will not spend much time on this slide. I think you already learned what approach you should have in terms of defining your KPIs and demonstrating that your project can contribute to the SDGs and the relevant national, international, and EU policies. So please, you find also this information in the call text. Make sure that you really think well about this, especially for this type of call. It's very policy related, governance related. So the link with the policy sphere should be very well elaborated. So I think I will stop here for this presentation. I'm sorry, I'm having troubles with the remote control. I'll stop here. And I think we can go to the section 2 multi-topic.
Yes. Thank you so much, Marco. Just to highlight that the first 4 presentations were covering section 1. And as Ali mentioned at the beginning, that the total budget is 33.5 million euros. And we are expecting to fund around 12 projects with the CSA, with some almost, it's the same deadline for application. We're talking about May 15th for the 3 parts: water management, food systems, and agro-food. And then for the CSA with the 11th of June as a deadline. So now we are moving to section 2, which is, in my view and PRIMA's view, as important and even more important in the program, with a budget committed by the participating states of more than 36 million euros. So please pay attention for the topics. And I think Marco and Ada will be presenting the details and what is expected from the topics under section 2. So go back to you again, please, Marco.
Thank you very much. Let's just give a few seconds to Waheed to share the presentation. And just I will, I'm seeing that we have many questions in the Q&A box. Once again, since you are 1,400 participants, we are overwhelmed with happiness because it's a big number, but of course it's a bit challenging to answer everyone. So also take some time to listen to the presentations because sometimes we are answering live. And please, you can use the partners, the Find Partners section of the PRIMA website to introduce yourself and to upload specific partnership requests. Because I'm seeing that you are introducing yourself, you're sharing your contact details, but you can do it on the PRIMA website. There is a specific section. You can indicate what topics you're interested in, your expertise, what you're looking for. Please use this section because it's very important for building a consortium. Okay, thank you very much, Waheed, for sharing the section 2 presentation. Again, I will present the first bit of this presentation, and then my colleague Eda Demir will jump in and present the remaining topics. Let me see if the remote control works. Had a IT issue. And also, if you check the reference documents section of the PRIMA website, you will be able to download all the guidelines, all the call texts, all the annual work plan, which is the most important document. So we will share also the slides. We will share the recording of this info day. But again, if you need, the information, you can just download all these documents and you will find the information there. Good. So thank you, Waheed. Let's see if we're lucky now with the, yes, now it looks like it's working. Okay, so Omar already made the distinction between section 1 and section 2. We need to stress that PRIMA is, has these two pillars. The section 1 is funded by the EU, by Horizon Europe. Section 2 is funded by the national funding agencies. Why am I saying this? Because the funding agencies are the funders of this call, and it's called a single multi-topic call because, yes, we have 3 topics, but we don't have 3 separate calls for proposals. So the money, the funding for your projects that will address the 3 topics will come from the same, let's say, funding common pot, we could say, okay? So all the proposals compete with each other. The total budget is not, we apologize because we haven't included the total budget in this slide. We will update the presentation and share it with you. The total budget, the total of the financial resources that were pooled in by the national funding agencies for this call is 36 million. So normally this translates every year into about 25 projects funded, more or less. This is the figure that you can expect the number of projects to be funded this year by section 2. So that's why we encourage you normally to have a budget request in your project of at least 1 million. Then, of course, you can also submit proposals with a different budget request. Since it's a section 2 call, you really need to check your national regulations. And again, this document is available on the PRIMA website in the reference document section. This is a document that we update sometimes. We receive the information from the funding agencies and we update it, but you will find all the information from your country, including the threshold and cappings for the budget that you can request, which will also influence the total amount of the project funding. So make sure you contact your NCPs. The contact details are available on our website, and check the national regulations. For the TRL, you can see that there is a difference with the previous calls. We didn't include a TRL range. We didn't tell you here, you need to reach this kind of TRL, this technology readiness level by the end of the project. It is important that you indicate in your proposal where you start and which TRL you will reach. However, even in this case, you need to check what kind of activities your funding agencies will fund. There are some agencies that, for example, only fund the universities. Some funding agencies, they fund the private sector. So some are more prone to funding innovation activities. Some are more focused on funding research activities, more basic research. And for this reason, of course, this will influence the definition of the TRLs, of the technologies that you will target in your project. And for such reason, I encourage you to contact your NCPs. Now, deadline is the same. The deadline for submission is the 15th of May at 1 p.m. Barcelona time, that is Central European Summer Time. The call will follow a two-stage submission process as the Section 1 innovation actions. I've taken some time to give you this general information. Now I will present the first topic, the one addressing water management. In this case, we are focusing on the protection and restoration of non-perennial water courses, with an eye on the ecosystems and on the enhancement of water allocation. Now, let me just give you some background information about the scope and the challenges that this call will address. Non-perennial water courses, we know that they are integral to Mediterranean hydroecological systems. They are very important for resilience, our resilience to climate change, for the sustainability of agriculture, and for the conservation of biodiversity. However, we also know that they are facing some challenges because they are vulnerable to climate change. They are affected increasingly by the overextraction of groundwater, by changes in land use, and by the intensification of agricultural systems. Another very important issue is that we yet do not have enough recognition of the importance in terms of their ecological role of non-perennial water courses in water governance. Therefore, we need to strengthen their protection and restoration. This is the main objective of the call. So what are the expected outcomes that we foresaw for this call? First off, we want an improvement in terms of scientific and policy understanding of the relevance of non-perennial water systems. Another important aspect is the evaluation of ecosystem services that, of course, form an integral part of this call. And they have to, of course, you need to explore the interactions with land use, with water abstractions, and with climate variability. Then to have, through the implementation of nature-based solutions, the restoration and improved resilience of such systems. More in the longer term, I made this distinction before about the short to medium term and the longer term. Even in this call, try to distinguish between these two types of expected outcomes and how you will, of course, achieve that. In the longer term, of course, there are communities that rely on non-perennial water courses, on associated ecosystems and their functions and services. And we want the livelihoods of such communities to be strengthened and the sustainability of agricultural activities to be strengthened as well. Again, more in the longer term, we would like water allocation frameworks to be updated in order to integrate the prioritization of biodiversity and ecosystems, therefore their protection, and the environmental flows. Okay, so to focus not only on the demand, on the water demand side and on water use efficiency. Regarding the proposed activities to achieve these expected impacts, outcomes, we present here 4, and we encourage you to address more than one. So first off, the mapping of non-perennial water courses at country level to guide sustainable water planning and accounting. The co-design of decision support tools. You can also build on existing ones and on digital and artificial intelligence features. The point here is that we want such tools to be, used in real life to improve water allocation and management. And the main, let's say, characteristic should be that they integrate the water needs of ecosystems, the demands of different users, the water demands of different users and sectors, and the protection of biodiversity. Third proposed activity, very important, I mentioned already the role of nature-based solutions. We provide here a list at the bottom of the slide. You also have this list in the call text, so I don't need to go in detail, and you can also explore other nature-based solutions. But the important thing is that the aim should be to restore the ecological functionality, to improve the stabilization of soils, to improve water infiltration, and enhance biodiversity. And the monitoring of biodiversity will be a very important part of this call because it will be needed to assess the effectiveness of these interventions. So again, we encourage you within the limits of the resources that you have available in terms of the expertise of the consortium, the funding available to explore more than one activity. Now, some important aspects. It's possible to implement projects at pilot scale, but please bear in mind that any methodologies, tools, or frameworks that you build, that you develop, you should one day scale it up across different Mediterranean contexts. Also, my colleagues stress these aspects. We don't want you to stay at the level, of the lab or just the project where you're working. Think how the whole Mediterranean can benefit from the results of your project. Now, a key component will be the involvement of stakeholders through co-creation and co-design in your project since its very early stages and throughout the whole project life cycle. Don't forget about the multi-actor approach. Don't forget to work with local communities, water managers, policymakers. We really value the implementation of living labs. So if you work in this way, the solutions that you will develop, they will be more relevant to society and communities. They will be tailored after the socio-ecological context where you are working. They will be more relevant and impact positively policy. And they will not just enhance scientific knowledge, but they will also be you will also be able to implement them at a practical scale. Now, one last thing. Results that will stem from projects funded by this topic should be linked with the AquaGreen network and with other projects funded by the Horizon Europe topic on agricultural knowledge and innovation systems that is still open. So I encourage you to check this, check the Horizon Europe work program. We provide in the slide the specific identifier of this topic. So yes, make sure that if you're funded, you also look for synergies with these other projects funded by Horizon Europe. To conclude, the usual slide about KPIs, policies, and SDGs. The message is clear for all of you. Demonstrate how you will contribute to them. Choose your indicators. In this case, for this specific topic, please make sure that you also align your projects with the United Nations GBF, the Global Biodiversity Framework that, as we said, biodiversity is very important for this call. And I think I will stop here. Thank you very much. And I will give the floor to my colleague, Eda Demir, for the other topics. And Eda, please, if I forgot anything, feel free to add.
Okay, thank you so much, Marco. So, hi everyone. My name is Eda Demir. As Marco said, I'm in charge of Section 2 together with Marco this year, and I will present to you the two other Section 2 topics for farming and agri-food. So I will just share my screen. Just a minute. I'm sorry. Can you see it in full screen?
Yes, yes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. So, as I said, the first topic I will present will be the farming topic of Section 2. And the topic is novel, remote, and non-invasive ICT monitoring and control systems against disease and pest infestation. The submission deadline is the same as Marco mentioned. It's the 15th of May at 1 o'clock Central European Time. So a little bit of background. before I explain what we expect from you. So as you know, the climate intensification, global trade and biodiversity loss has been leading to increases in pest and disease outbreaks all over the world and in the Mediterranean region. And this also causes great risks to our agricultural productivity, which can result to food insecurity. In fact, the FAO estimates that globally 20 to 40% of crop production is lost just due to pests. And the situation we know is more dire in smallholder and open field farming systems. Of course, there has been some progress made in digital agriculture, but the problem is that the adoption is very limited, especially in rural and resource-limited areas, due to factors such as infrastructure gaps, the high costs that are associated with them, lack of user-friendly tools, which are also context adapted. And for these reasons, action is usually delayed, and there is still a heavy reliance on broad-spectrum pesticides. On the other hand, of course, there are emerging technologies which can be benefited from, such as AI-assisted diagnostics tools, Earth observation systems, proximal and remote pest sensing, and non-invasive field monitoring. These tools and technologies can help to improve integrated pest management through early detection, real-time surveillance, and responses which are targeted. But the fact is that these technologies existing is not enough just by itself. They also have to be affordable, scalable, interoperable, and tailored to the Mediterranean farming conditions, and especially to the conditions of the smallholders. And this call topic aims to respond to this need. The aim is to co-develop and demonstrate cost-effective ICT-enabled systems for pest and disease monitoring and management that reduce pesticide use, lower environmental impacts, and support the transition toward sustainable and climate-resilient agriculture in the Mediterranean. And the projects are expected to address at least 2 of the following activities. Of course, you are encouraged to cover more depending on your scope and your resources. So, but at least 2 of the following activities. Implement, adapt, and validate existing low-cost, non-invasive digital tools for the early detection and monitoring of pests and diseases in Mediterranean farming conditions. Proposals are encouraged to explore AI-powered solutions which are capable of providing real-time diagnosis, forecasting, and decision support via mobile or web-based platforms. You can integrate Earth observation, satellite imagery, meteorological data, and in-situ monitoring to enable hyperlocal forecasting of pest and disease outbreaks, and also support tailored context-specific treatment strategies. Your project can develop scalable business models which support the uptake and replication, as well as the integration of digital tools into existing national agricultural advisory systems. You can also implement inclusive capacity building initiatives which target farmers, extension agents, and local institutions to ensure the adoption, to ensure their digital literacy and long-term use. So in order to do that, you should also include training materials in the local languages, provide interactive workshops, and support the digitally underserved communities. Projects can also produce technical guidelines or operational toolkits with practical recommendations which support the deployment of ICT-based integrated pest management solutions. Successful proposals are expected to advance the development, testing, and adoption of innovative digital and non-invasive systems for the early detection, monitoring, and management of pests and crop diseases. Funded projects are expected to deliver results which contribute to the following outcomes: enhanced early warning systems for pests and diseases through integrated digital technologies, increasing adoption of affordable and user-friendly based pest and disease monitoring tools by smallholder farmers, reducing environmental footprint of pest and disease control through targeted and precise agrochemical application or other eco-friendly treatments, improving institutional and farmer capacity in using digital tools for integrated pest management, and increasing the stakeholders' confidence in ICT-driven crop protection methods and decision support systems. One important aspect to remember is if applicants are targeting regulated pests in the EU, they are expected to ensure full compliance with the applicable EU and also national rules and procedures. And these are set out in the EU plant health law, so you should make sure to check out this. In such cases, the participation and the formal involvement of the relevant national plant protection organizations is required in order for you to ensure the full alignment. We expect proposals to adopt a multi-actor approach in order to ensure the involvement of these NPPOs. And of course, we expect you to collaborate with the farming sector in decision-making and implementation processes. The primary target groups could include farmers, farmer cooperatives, SMEs, and technology providers in digital agriculture, other advisory services, and public authorities. We expect these groups to be directly benefited from the project activities, and for this reason, we would like you to actively engage with them during the designing of your project and to be involved with them during trainings and demonstrations and knowledge transfer. We also encourage collaboration with other Horizon Europe projects. We have listed some of them here, such as Wheat Watcher, Stella, Purpest. You can find more, of course, so it would be good if you could collaborate with them in your project. We would also like you to consider joint dissemination activities with an emphasis on peer-reviewed publications and other quality scientific outputs. As all my colleagues said, please make sure to indicate in your proposals your links with the SDGs. So for this topic, we thought the zero hunger, the responsible consumption and production, and climate action could be the most relevant. But of course, you can add more or other SDGs. Please make sure to indicate your links with other EU policies, such as the European Green Deal, the EU Biodiversity Strategy, the Digital Europe Strategy, EU Global Food Security, and EU Organic Action Plan. And make sure to involve the PRIMA-specific KPIs in your proposals. So the next topic, as I said, would be the agri-food value chain topic. The title of this topic is Empowering Mediterranean Food Value Chains Through Context-Aware Digital Traceability. Traditional Mediterranean agri-food value chains are facing many barriers, which inhibits them from accessing premium and regulated markets due to high cost or complexity of existing traceability and certification systems. And we see that this is more pronounced for heritage and small-scale producers. And we know that traceability can help to increase consumer trust and create value retention. However, current digital solutions are not very adapted to smallholder contexts, and this reinforces fragmentation and also reduces competitiveness. So for this reason, this call aims for projects to co-design, pilot, and validate modular, affordable, non-destructive, and context-adapted digital traceability systems. And they should also include heritage and culturally significant products that are not covered by PDO and PGI schemes. We We would like the proposals to address at least 2 of the following activities. So value chain mapping, identifying data gaps, authenticity risks, governance structures, and identify where non-destructive verification would add value. Co-developing and piloting digital traceability modules. Field demonstrations of digital traceability modules such as mobile logging, QR codes, distributed ledgers, and AI-assisted verifications. Development of modular decision support tools for producer groups, cooperatives, or local authorities. And capacity building, which could include training programs, peer learning networks, and demonstration actions for the sustained adoption of these solutions. And of course, a multi-stakeholder dialogue, which ensures alignment with certification bodies, regulators, and the market actors. Successful projects are expected to support the development and adoption of context-aware, affordable, interoperable, and non-destructive digital traceability. We would like these systems to enable the producers to demonstrate the authenticity and the sustainability to meet certification or regulatory requirements, enable them to access premium markets, and to strengthen the consumers' trust in them. So for this reason, the project results are expected to contribute to all of the following outcomes: enhanced traceability and transparency, improved market access, practical digital solutions, strengthened capacity, and increased consumer trust. We would like the solutions developed under this topic to be compatible with the common European agricultural data space, and they should support data sovereignty, interoperability, and fair value sharing among producers and value chain actors. The use of open standards and open source components is very strongly encouraged, and we encourage avoiding vendor lock-in and ensuring continuity, scalability, and knowledge capitalization. Proposals should also, proposals are encouraged to build strategic collaborations with relevant research infrastructures, such as the Metro Food RI. And of course, as always, we would like you to enable the multi-actor approach with inclusive participation from SMEs, cooperatives, farmers, consumer organizations, and local authorities. And they should be involved throughout the project cycle, from design to deployment, as much as possible. We expect that the primary target groups could be smallholder farmers, especially rural and mountain cooperatives, women and youth-led enterprises, and SMEs, local authorities, and consumer organizations. So this is why we expect you to we expect them to be directly involved in your activities and for you to have capacity building activities for them. As mentioned in all the other topics, again, you should indicate very clearly what your KPIs are. So you should pick KPIs from our PRIMA guidebook. But if you have others that are not listed there, you can also add those as well. Please indicate very clearly what EU policies you are in line with, such as the European Green Deal, the EU Innovation Agenda, EU's Vision for Agriculture and Food. And please make clear linkages to the SDGs. It could be for this one, zero hunger, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, or responsible consumption and production. But you can list any others that you deem relevant as well. So these are the topics for section 2, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Ada, for the presentation, and of course for Marco. With this, I think we have finished the first part of today's Infoday before we move to the award, of course. We have presented the topics for Section 1 and for Section 2. Just remember that we are offering a significant budget to fund scientific research, approaching around 69 or 70 million euros, 33 million euros under Section 1 to fund around 12 projects, and then talking about roughly 36 million euros to fund more or less 25 projects. So I think these numbers are significant and encouraging for you to apply. Before we conclude this session, and 5 minutes on top of that, since we are a project that really supports innovation, we have also added this Young Innovators Award. So more information in the next 5 minutes will be presented by Mohamed. Mohamed, please.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Omar. This will be the last presentation for the morning session, so I will try to be as fast as possible. You would discover that this topic or this award is completely different from the topic that we have presented over the day. It is an award to recognize the young leaders and their role in shaping the sustainable Mediterranean future. This is the fifth round. We published this award. In the first 2 rounds, we funded Nexus topics, and or not funded, but awarding the Nexus ideas. And in the next 2 awards, we acknowledge the women efforts and role in greening the agro-food value chain. This year, it is a little bit wider because it's covering and acknowledging the effort of the young innovators and the role in innovating and building the future of the Mediterranean. The award objectives, as I said, is to recognize the youth-led innovation aligned with the PRIMA different missions under the different thematic areas, as my colleague already mentioned, to promote the youth leadership and problem solving in achieving the sustainability all over the Mediterranean, and to support the locally relevant and contextualized the Mediterranean solution. So we are looking for those innovators who invent or innovate something that have a real impact to the Mediterranean pressing challenges. We will have 2 equivalent prizes, each one would worth 10,000 euro. And you know that we will have this means that we will have 2 winners. There is no ranking because we have the 2 winners equally acknowledged. And the total budget for this award for this year, as usual, it is 20,000 euro. The eligibility criteria. This is a very important slide. Please pay a lot of attention to this. First, you are applying as natural person, not as your organization, not as an SME or university, but you are applying as individual or a group of individuals. So me and my team are applying to this, but not as a university or not as a legal entity. And we are targeting youth who are aged between 18 to 35 years old at the date and of the submission deadline. Okay, so this is very important as well. The age is very important because, as we said from the title, we are acknowledging and recognizing the youth innovators. The country of origin, this round, we are targeting the nationals and residents of the PRIMA Southern Mediterranean countries. And here you can find the list of those eligible countries where you can apply for this. And the solutions need to be implemented in one or more than one of the PRIMA participating states. For sure, PRIMA staff cannot apply to this school. And if you have already received a similar prize from EU or Euratom prize for the same activity or the same innovation, you cannot apply because you will not be awarded twice for the same idea. The award evaluation criteria, this is also very important that we will have 4 criteria. So when you are drafting your application for the award, which is again completely different from the templates of Section 1 and Section 2, so you can go to the PRIMA website and you can download the templates of the award for Part 1 and Part 2. So we will have 4 evaluation criteria: the leadership and the creativity of your innovation, the relevance to the Mediterranean challenges, like your project or your idea is addressing one of the pressing or emerging challenges on the Mediterranean. So this is what we always call it, the Mediterranean specificity. To show as well, the third criterion is to show the impact achieved or expected from your idea. And you need to classify it into like environmental impact, social impact, economic impact, and technological impact for sure. Last but not least, it is to show the replicability and the growth potential of your innovation that can be maybe replicated, scale up and out to other regions or to other sectors. This is the timeline and how to apply. So the call was launched on the 20th of March, 2026, and the deadline is the 28th of May, 2026. So please don't be confused between the award deadline and the 2 other sections deadline. And how to apply, you can go to the PRIMA website under the award section, and you can download the rule of the contest, where it has all the information about the call, how to apply for it. You have the 2 templates to fill and to upload it to the system. One is the template 1, which is the administrative data of you and maybe your team if you want to apply as a group. And template 2, which is the technical application, a maximum 10 pages. This is very important because if you try to upload more than 10 pages, the system will reject this and will ask you to revise this. If you have any further question or questions, please feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you so much, and back to you, Omar.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you so much. So with this, we conclude our morning session, the scientific or technical part, and stay tuned with us. We will have a hot break until 12 noon, and we will start sharp at 12, so we can go through the administrative and legal part of today's info session. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again in a few minutes. Okay, good afternoon. It was a short break, very quick break, but we have a lot of information that we'd like to share with you. So as I said before the break, we will have, we will talk about the administrative and legal part of this call. We'll give you more information on how to apply, give you some tips and tricks on how to write a good proposal. The KPIs have been mentioned several times in all presentations this morning, so we'll share more information, and of course, budget issues and legal dimension of the application. So we start first with the call submission and evaluation of the proposal, presentation by Fabrice. So we start, Fabrice.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar. So here, this is a very practical presentation. I hope it will answer the majority of your question. We have received several of them during the first session. So let's go. It seems we still have, okay. Yeah, it's working. So the first information I want to give you, it's like all the information that you need is contained in the PRIMA website. So please visit this website. You will find all the information about the call. There is a call section, research and innovation, that I will show you in detail. And we also have a partnering tool. This is why we were requesting you to do not post in the Q&A your interest in the call, but use the partnering tool on our PRIMA website instead. It's much more efficient because it will stay there, and you can contact other institutions that are interesting to participate. So very important, the partnering tool. And we also have an expert registration tool on our website where you can register, and if you fit with the call, we will invite you to evaluate the proposal. Be aware that you cannot be an expert, an evaluator, and submit a proposal the same year. This is forbidden. So where to go to submit your proposal? There is an item, research and innovation, in our website. And so if you click on it, you will see in this menu, submit your proposal. You just have to click on submit your proposal and you will be directed to the page of the calls. So you have all the explanation about each call. It's a small card with the basic information, the deadline, the topic, the budget, etc. And at the bottom of this small card, there is one for each topic. There is a button more info. And if you click on more info, then you have access to all the full text of the call and all the call documents and templates that are needed to reply to this call. So the annual work plan, the template, the guidelines, you have everything. And you also have the email of the person that is in charge of this call. So you can contact him or her to have more information. 1 month before the deadline, so it means for the section 1 innovation call and section 2 multi-topic call, the submission website will be open the 15th of April. As the submission deadline is 15th of May, we will have the link 1 month before, and it will appear here on this specific page. So if you apply for the farming, for example, you enter in the farming part. If you apply to the section 1 water, you enter in the section 1 water, and you will have the button submit. This year, normally you click on submit and you are directed to the ANR platform. This is the submission platform. And this is what will happen. But there is a small novelty this year to log to the ANR platform. So to be able to submit a proposal, you need first to create an account to log to this platform. It's really easy. It takes you less than 3 minutes, but just be aware that it's an additional step that was not existing in the previous years. So you can already create your account on this page. It's completely independent of the submission. I encourage you to do it now, so it's done. And when you will prepare your proposal, you can log easily and you will not have any problem. So what you will see this page, and there is a button, I access my SIM account with a research project account. So you click on that button and it will open this page. There are 2 ways to identify or to identify yourself or to create your account. If you already have an ORCID account, you click on the ORCID and all the data will be directly retrieved from your ORCID account. You just have to give an authorization and it will fulfill all the field automatically. If not, you can also create your account as it's shown at the bottom of this windows. You click on it and then you will start the process of creating your account. It's super simple. So here you see I'm a natural person or a legal entity. You choose. Here I just present the natural person because this is what we have in general in PRIMA. So it just, you put your gender, birth date, name, surname, and an email. And that's it. You click on validate. In the minute following your validation, you will receive a code. You enter this code in the next windows, it will appear on your screen. You validate again, and your account is created. So very easy, but be aware this is different from the previous year. Once you have created it, you can log, and you will be directly connected to the ANR platform. But here, be aware, it's just the step to create your account. It's not to submit your proposal. So to submit your proposal, once you have done this, you close the windows of the ANR and you go back to the PRIMA website and you use again the submission website. That will be available 1 month before the deadline. When you will click on it, if you already have your account created, this is what you will see. You will be directed to the ANR platform. There is always the title of the call at the top, so be sure you are applying to the right topic, and you will just have to validate your email address that everything is already registered in reality. So you verify, you click, and you enter. And so this is mainly the first step is to be done by the coordinator, because it's the coordinator who creates the proposal. So once you log, you will introduce the basic information about the project. So the title, the abstract mainly, then you save, and you can go back later on, or you follow the submission process. There is online an electronic submission system handbook, and this is what you are seeing here. It's full of screenshots, and it guides you step by step and tell you what you have to fulfill or not. So this is important when you fulfill the information on the platform. Have this guide by your side, and it will be very easy for you. So once you have created the basic information of the project, the coordinator has to add the partner. So it's again easy. You click on this button. This is the page you will see. You click on plus and you add the information of your partner. Each time you add a partner, they will receive automatically an email informing them that they have been invited to participate to this proposal. Okay. Then, so as I was telling you, when you enter into the call, you have access to all the documents that are needed, the template, the regulation, etc. But there is also another way to go to this place. Under the research and innovation menu, there is an items reference document. Here it's always available, and you will find all the documentation about the PRIMA, since the strategic and research agenda, the annual work plan, the grant agreement model, and all the guidance, the guidelines for section 1, section 2, the templates, the award, the CSA, everything is stocked here, so you can go directly there. Quick checklist to submit your proposal. First step, be sure that your consortium is eligible. Especially for section 2, you have to follow the national regulation, as it has been already explained a little bit. Some fund only university or public sector, other not. So you have to be aware of that. Please check and verify that you are eligible. This is the first stage. And then you only have 2 documents to submit, the part 1 and the part 2, that are the 2 templates that are available on our website. The part 1 is mainly the administrative data for stage 1, and at stage 2, there are more information to add, but this is just the first step. And the part 2 is the technical part. So it's the proposal itself, the scientific document. You never forget about this. For stage 1, the budget requested is just the global budget. We don't need the detailed Excel file, nothing. It's online. You declare the full cost and how much you are requesting to PRIMA or the funding agency for each partner. Then only if you are invited to submit a full proposal for stage 2, you will have to provide a detailed Excel file and submit it as an annex, but only stage 2. What is inside the part 1, the admin part? It's really basic, the name of the partner, the abstract, the call you are replying, the duration of the project, and more or less this is it. An important thing is a PIC number. We request a PIC number, at least a temporary one at the time of the submission. That must be validated at the time of signing the grant agreement if you are selected. And for stage 2, be aware the part 1 is different, stage 1 and stage 2. In stage 2, there are more information requested about the gender equality plan, the description of the team, the ethic tables. So you will see that if you are invited to the stage 2. The content of the proposal part 2, this is for the full proposal, maximum 40 pages, all the items that are requested. Here, we are just at the pre-proposal stage, so only 10 pages maximum. If it's more than 10 pages, the system rejects your proposal automatically. So be careful on that. For stage 1, you only have to deal with excellence part, objective and ambition and methodology, and the second item, impact, but only the point 2.1, the project pathway toward impact. The rest has to be developed in the full proposal, not now. Evaluation process. We have some question about the evaluation process. So what you will send us your proposal. We will check for admissibility and eligibility check. This will be explained by our colleague Julia Rebes, the legal officer of PRIMA. And if you are complying with the rules, we send your proposal to 3 independent experts. They don't know each other. Nobody knows who is part of the evaluation committee. So they are doing a blind kind of, not blind evaluation because they have the consortium, but they don't know who are the other evaluators. Each of them make its own evaluation. We gather all the evaluation together here and we check. If there are discrepancies, so meaning that the evaluator have a disagreement on the scoring, one is thinking it's a very good project and the other think it's maybe too weak, we organize special meeting, consensus meeting to find an agreement on the project and assign it a score that is reflecting the opinion of the three people. Once everything is done, we organize an evaluation panel to do the ranking of the proposal. So here, all the evaluators involved in the committee attend this meeting, and we rank the proposal according to their score and discussing them individually. If it is the end of the first stage, we decide on a list of projects to be invited to stage 2, so to prepare and submit a full proposal. And we start again the process. So you are invited to stage 2, you submit, we check the admissibility and eligibility, we go back to 3 evaluators and again. And at the end of the selection process, so for a CSA stage 1 or at the end of stage 2 for the other call, we have the ranking list and we found the top ranked project. So if it is in section 1, you will sign a grant agreement directly with PRIMA because it's a direct EU funding. And if you are applying to section 2, each team, in each country will have to sign the grant agreement with his national funding agency. And then you start the project and PRIMA will monitor the project. The scoring and evaluation, I will not read this, of course. These are the 3 criteria of evaluation. They are in the guidelines. Please read them correctly because it's important. You will be evaluated according to these criteria. So be sure that you are answering what is requested here. Each criteria is scored out of 5 points. For the pre-proposal stage, we only have the excellence and the impact that are evaluated. And only for stage 2, for the IA and RIA, we have the quality and efficiency of the implementation. There are thresholds to be able first to pass to stage 2 and then to be funded. The threshold for stage 2, you need to have at least 4 out of 5 for each evaluation criteria. 4 out of 5 in excellence and 4 out of 5 in impact. If you have less than this, you cannot go to the stage 2. In the stage 2, for the full proposal, there are again threshold. You need to have 3 out of 5 for each evaluation criteria, so excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation, and a minimum of 10 out of 15 to be able to be funded. If you don't reach this threshold, you cannot be funded. Be careful for innovation action. So all the section 1 call is here. The impact factor has a weight of 1.5. So to do the ranking list, we multiply the score that you obtain in the impact by 1.5. So it's very important to work carefully on this section because it has a higher weight than the other. Some recommendation, don't wait the last minute, always. It's simple, but it takes time. You have the time to log, to enter all the email of your partners, etc., etc. So don't wait the last moment. The submission website is open 1 month before the deadline, so start as earliest as you can. Be sure to submit part 1 and that all the documents you are eligible. And so, yes, for section 2 especially, check your eligibility because it's a pity to prepare a proposal and not be eligible. If you are not eligible, your proposal is not evaluated at all. So don't lose your time and check this important information before. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Fabrice, so much for this detailed presentation. We do understand that Fabrice has just showed a lot of information. For this reason, let me remind again that this session is being recorded and will be available on our website and our YouTube channel. Also, all the presentations will be available on our website, and you have the contact details for all the officers. You may contact them directly. That's available also on our website. We move to the next presentation, how to write a good proposal. And again, this is another important piece of information for you to know because it's built on the experience from several years of past calls that we have launched under the PRIMA program, and we will share with you what works, what doesn't work, the mistakes that some researchers made, what to avoid, what to focus on. So in detail, Mohamed will share that with you. To you, Mohamed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omar. I will try to be fast as much as I can. Okay, so for the next slides, we will share with you some tips and tricks on how to draft your application, and these tips and tricks that what we have learned over the years from the PRIMA applications. And also, just for your info, this tips and tricks or instructions can be as well applicable for your Horizon Europe proposal, because as already mentioned that we are using the same templates as the Horizon Europe. Okay, so just a quick recap that we have for this year. We have Section 1 and Section 2. We have Innovation Action under Section 1. And we have Research and Innovation Action under Section 2. And we have the CSA, which is only under Section 1. Just a quick refreshment about the eligibility criteria, because we have received this question several times on your chat, that what is the eligible consortium size or the minimum consortium size for each section. It might be confusing for you, but to simplify it, it is two group of numbers, 3421 for Section 1 and 342 for Section 2. So you need to have 3 countries, one from the north, one from the south, or not one EU and at least one non-EU, 4 partners, at least 2 of them from the south, and 1 SME. This is for Section 1, and 342 for Section 2, which is 3 countries participating, PRIMA participating states, 4 partners, at least 2 of them from the non-EU PRIMA participating states. So this is the 4 thematic area that we have. And just to recap on what Fabrice mentioned in the previous presentation, this year we returned back to the 2-stage submission. So by mid of May, you need to submit only the pre-proposal, which is the top part of this diagram. You need to fill the part 1, which is an administrative data about your project. There are some online fields that you need to fill directly on the submission system, PRIMA electronic submission system, as well as there is a template. It's a Word file that you can download it from the PRIMA website. You fill it and then upload it as a PDF as the coordinator of the project on behalf of the consortium. The technical part or the technical proposal or part B, which is the pre-proposal, maximum 10 pages. As Fabrice mentioned, that the system is smart enough to recognize if you exceed 10 pages, the system will remind you or will be blocked and will alert you exceed the page limit, so you need to revise it. That's why it is strongly advised not to wait to the last moment to upload your file, but it is better that you keep the system continuously updated with an updated version of your proposal. We will have the admin check. This is applicable for Section 1 and Section 2. And then we will have the technical evaluation, as already Fabrice mentioned. If you will be shortlisted, so you will be invited to submit the full application. For the sake of the time, we will just focus now on the part 2, which is on how to draft your pre-proposal version. Just for the CSA, it is a single stage submission. So you need to submit the full application for the CSA. And this is only for the CSA. So this is not applicable for Section 1 or Section 2. But for the CSA, it is a single stage submission. So you need to submit the full application at once, which is here at 25 pages. This is the maximum page for the CSA. So this is very important to differentiate between the different topics and types of action that you want to apply for. So for the stage 1, for Section 1 or for Section 2, for RIA or IA action, this is the structure of the pre-proposal. You have the excellence and you have 2 subpoints under each one of them, the objectives and the methodology, and you have 1 point under the impact section, which is the project pathway toward the impact. I will go to the details of each one of these points on how to draft it. So for the excellence part, the first point is to define or to present to the evaluators the general and the specific objectives of your project. You may be for sure familiar with the term SMART objective, that it is specific to the topic that you are applying for. It is measurable, that we can measure it. It is achievable, so try to avoid the overestimation. It is relevant to the scope of the project that you want to apply for, and it is time-bound. You can structure it like in this like abbreviation, use it as a bullet like SO1, SO2, because throughout the document, the 10 pages only, you need to refer to and to match between the work packages and the different objectives and so on. Also, it is very important, especially for innovation action, to show and highlight the novelty and innovation of your product. And this led us again to the importance of showing the start and end date of your technology readiness level, because this what differentiates a good proposal with an excellent proposal, especially with a high competitive program like PRIMA. So for section 1, for instance, we are talking about advancing the TRL, let's say from 3 to 5, that you have already proved the concept of, and it is already validated through previous bilateral or national grants, horizon projects, or previous actions. And then we want you to advance it to a higher TRL, or the final TRL, which is like from 7 to 8 or from 8 to 9, and to show to the evaluators how you are going to achieve this advancement. This is exactly the typical concept for section 1. For section 2, we are talking about a little bit lower technology readiness level, but let's say, for instance, you are advancing it from 3 to 6. The second part under the excellence section, which is the methodology, how you are going to translate the objectives into actions. And then it will end with the final results. So there are 3, let's say, sub-points or sections under the methodology. First is to show the concept and the approach that you are going to apply in order to have or to translate the objectives into the final results. This will be achieved through a set of work packages. Here, we are not asking you to present the details of the work packages, because this will be later on the second stage if you will be shortlisted. But here it is important to show the logic and the structure behind the different actions and activities under your project. Also mention the key activities or the subtasks and the role of each of your consortium members, and to differentiate those actions to like research activities, it's demonstration activities, it is piloting, it is testing, and so on. And also link between the technology that you are going to develop or the final results with the challenges and the obstacles, how this can be achieved, and what types of barriers that you may face during the implementation of your action. Last but not least, for sure, is to link between your research innovation activities and the other PRIMA strategic research and innovation agenda, EU policies, and how your project will be aligned with these strategies and policies. The second section under the methodology, which is to show the interdisciplinary between the partners and the consortiums. So this is one of the common mistakes, that we invite friends to the consortium or people we used to apply together for papers or for Erasmus. But here it is very important that you select the partners based on their knowledge and role in the project. So this need to be reflected inside the document under this section, also to show the public and societal engagement and how you are going to guarantee the gender dimension and gender equity throughout your action. The last part, which is mandatory and essential here, is to show that and to detail the open science practices that you are going to apply to make sure that your result and data will apply this FAIR principle, and also to guarantee the open access of the publication. That's why it is a mandatory deliverable to submit by month 6 as a separate and a standalone deliverable, the data management plan, which will be a live document until the end of the project, because we will ask you to continuously update this deliverable. The second section of the proposal or the pre-proposal, which is the impact section, a single point under it, which is the pathways toward the impact. We need you to categorize the different outcomes and impact to be like scientific impacts, economic, technological, societal, and environmental impacts. And our colleague here, Itzel, will present in more details on how you link the impact pathway to the PRIMA key performance indicators. But it is very important to show to the evaluator and to the evaluation panel that your product is addressing an urgent demand of the target group. So we need you to define those target groups and what are their demands and who are the final beneficiaries or the users of your technology and how you are going to communicate with them. Also, it is important to think or to open our mind when we're drafting the proposal to link our product with the topic-specific expected outcomes and to the wider impact, which is the PRIMA objectives. That's why it is very important to have a look on the PRIMA Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda. And please be precise and specific and avoid the overestimation. This is not part of the PRIMA template. This is just some, let's say, suggested tools and diagrams and tables that you can use it in order to summarize to the evaluator the concept behind your project. The last part is to share with you some common reasons of the failure that we have learned over the years, such as maybe low relevance between my very interesting idea and the PRIMA topic that I'm applying for. That's why it is very important to analyze and to read carefully the topics. One of the main problems that we are always noticing from the applications over the year is how I can build my consortium or find a partner. That's why in this slide, we try to summarize to you some of the useful links and web platforms that you can use it. So you can like filter and to check the profiles of maybe a potential coordinators or partners who can join your consortium. So you can first, for sure, the first one is the PRIMA partnering tool, as already Fabrice mentioned in the beginning. Also the EU or the Horizon Europe funding and tender portal. This is a very interesting platform that you can as well use it to search and to look for potential coordinators and partners. The last slide is to share with you, let's say, some final takeaways at the end that please pay attention to the two sections, the excellence part and the impact part, because they are equally important. So please pay equal attention to both of them. It is only 10 pages on the first stage, so please make it precisely and concisely. Quantify everything you are going to mention. If you are going to mention that we are going to have some workshops, demo sites, and so on, you need to specify and to quantify it. You can use tables, figures, and diagrams when it is needed. Present in brief the dissemination or communication, how you are going to approach the target groups, the stakeholders, and so on. Show the interdisciplinary among the partners, with the stakeholders and the end users. Not to forget, for sure, the cross-cutting aspects, such as the gender dimension, digitalization, AI. And the last part, which is to improve the quality of your proposal. It is very important to mention the stakeholders and the end users and the communication tools or channels that you are going to use for it. As I said, and keep emphasizing that, to align your product with the PRIMA Strategic Research Innovation Agenda, to the call of the 2026 and the topic that you want to apply for. Justify the applied technology, why you are selecting those technologies, those sites, the partners. Check the numbering throughout the application, like the partner orders and the number of work packages. Have measurable key performance indicators and quantify the objectives and activities and deliverables. Last but not least, for sure, is to check, especially it is recommended for Section 1, but it is very essential and mandatory for Section 2 to check the national regulations. And if you have any doubt about your eligibility, you can communicate directly with the national contact point. And we have already published and shared on the PRIMA website the contacts of the national contact points of each country. Thank you so much and wish you a good luck with your application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed. Very efficient on timing. So far, I think we are going very well. So without any delay, I will give the floor to Julia, our legal officer, to give a presentation about the full management rules and conditions. Julia, the floor is yours, please.
Okay, hello. Thank you, Omar. Good morning. Good morning to you all. Thank you for attending this PRIMA Infoday 2026. I'm Julia Rebes, PRIMA's legal officer. And now and during the next 10 minutes, although I have a slot of 15 minutes, but I will try to make it in 10, I will guide you through the main legal aspects of the call 2026. I'm aware that you have already received a lot of information. But as I have said, I have a compromise of 10 minutes, so I will try to keep this presentation focused and practical. The objective is not to provide a detailed legal analysis of the call, but to focus mainly on eligibility conditions, very important, and on the grant agreement. So essentially, I will explain only the key elements that you need to know at your current stage as potential applicants of the call 2026. So now while I'm waiting to move the slide, well, I will continue explaining what you will see in the next slide. The PRIMA Work Program 2026 that was published last week has been approved by the European Commission and by the PRIMA Foundation Board of Trustees. It is a call that is operated under the rules of Horizon Europe, but at the same time complemented by the PRIMA specific rules, the PRIMA decision, the amendment of the PRIMA decision, and the Work Program 2026 itself. It is, that has been already mentioned, a two-stage submission process, except obviously for the CSA, which is only one stage. I will talk about the PRIMA eligibility rules that, except for the CSA, required to have at least 4 independent entities coming from a PRIMA participating states. And in the case of IA actions in Section 1, it also required to have at least one SME on the consortium. As well, for certain type of applicants, for both Section 1 and 2, you will need to have a gender equality plan. The eligibility conditions, as I have said, are defined in 2 levels. The first one is the standard Horizon Europe rules. And secondly, PRIMA operates with the introduction of specific conditions. These specific conditions are indicated through the PRIMA decisions and the work program, and they are technically named as derogations. So it is very important and relevant because you cannot rely only on 2 Horizon Europe rules, because the PRIMA eligibility rules go beyond the Horizon Europe framework, and applicants must ensure compliance with both layers, Horizon Europe plus the derogations introduced on the PRIMA rules. Before going into detail of the specific eligibility conditions for both Section 1 and Section 2, let's make let's go to the beginning, to the origins, and let's remind which are the 20 PRIMA participating states, and to which group this country belong. Because depending to which group this country belong, you will know if your consortium meets the minimum eligible conditions. The first group is the PRIMA EU member states. Sometimes we mention the North group, and for the other group, the South group, but if you see the map, geographically, it is not entirely correct. So let's see the 12 PRIMA EU member states are Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Luxembourg, Malta, Portugal, Slovenia, and Spain. 12. This is the first group. The second group is the 8 PRIMA Mediterranean partner countries: Algeria, Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Tunisia, and Turkey. So once it is clear that some countries belong to the first group and the others to the second, now we can go into detail into the eligibility conditions of Section 1. In Section 1, as you know, we have several innovation actions and one CSA. So, to be sure that you understand well what are the eligible conditions, you can go directly to the work program, to the pages 77 and 78, and more specifically to the table 22. In the table 22, you will see what you need to know to be sure that your consortium is eligible. But let's repeat it and remind it that you will need at least 4 independent legal entities all established in PRIMA participating states. From these 4 independent legal entities, at least 3 of them should be established in different countries. At least 1 should be from the group of EU member states, and at least 2 should be established in a PRIMA Mediterranean partner countries. And in addition, in Section 1 for innovation actions, at least 1 of these partners should be an SME, a small or medium-sized enterprise. For the case of CSA, it is different. It is the only difference of CSA is not only that it's one stage process, but as well the minimum requirement of the consortium is smaller, and it's enough with 1 legal entity established in a PRIMA participating state. Concerning the SMEs, you will find the definition of SME on the work program to be sure that you know what is considered an SME and the minimum conditions to consider that one of these partners are an SME is the definition done by the Commission, the European Commission recommendation 2003/361. So it will be essentially entities which have fewer than 250 persons, that their annual turnover not exceed 50 million euros, or an annual balance sheet that not exceeding 43 million euros. You can find this information in the work program, but I remind you, at least in Section 1, Innovation Actions, 1 of the partners should be an SME. So here you can see different examples to know when a consortium is eligible or not. Let's see quickly each of the examples. In the first example, in the first column, you see that this consortium has 1 university from France, 1 research center from Italy, 1 SME from Tunisia, and 1 public research institute from Jordan. In this case, this consortium is fully eligible because they have at least 4 independent entities, at least from 3 different countries, 1 coming from the EU group, and at least 2 coming from a Mediterranean partner countries, in this case, Tunisia and Jordan. And at the same time, at least 1 is an SME, is the partner from Tunisia. Now let's go to the second column. The second example, we have a University of France, a research center from Italy, a university from Egypt, and an SME from Egypt as well. In this case, it also fulfills the minimum conditions because we have 4 independent entities. At least 3 of them come from 3 different countries, in this case, France, Italy, and Egypt. At least 1 is from the group of EU member states, in this case, Italy and France. And at least 2 of them come from Mediterranean partner countries. In this case, both of them are coming from Egypt. But as we have said, this is fully acceptable. The 2, at least, partners coming from Mediterranean partner countries can be from the same country. And at least as well, we have an SME. The third column, it is an example of non-eligible consortium. Why? because we have one research institute from Portugal, one university from Turkey, one public body from Morocco, and one university from Lebanon. It may seem that it is fully eligible from a perspective, from a geographical perspective, but we do not have an SME in this consortium. Therefore, this consortium will not be eligible. So we remind you the importance to fulfill all the eligible conditions, also including the SME. Otherwise, your consortium will not be deemed eligible. The next slide is for the section 2, for RIAs. In this case, you can find the information in the table 24 of the work program. And from a geographical perspective, it is the same eligible condition, so it is not need to go back into the examples. But as I have said, you need 4 independent legal entities, 3 of them from different countries, at least one established in an EU member state, a PRIMA EU member state, and at least 2 in PRIMA Mediterranean partner countries. In this case, it is not needed to have an SME in your consortium. However, as it has been mentioned before by Fabrice, in section 2, you need to check with your own national funding agencies and regulations that your entity is also eligible to receive funds under section 2. So you need to check, you need to first fulfill the PRIMA's eligibility conditions, but at the same time, in parallel, you need to check with your national funding agencies. Now we go for the requirement of having a gender equality plan, both for section 1 and section 2, and it does not apply to all type of applicants. You will need this to fulfill this requirement in case you are a public body, a research organization, or a higher education establishment, if you are established in an EU member state or in a Horizon Europe associated country. For the case of research organizations and higher education establishments, it is also required even if you are a private entity. So if you are a private entity dedicated to research to the research and you are established in an EU member state, you will need to fulfill as well the requirement of gender equality, to have a gender equality plan. This requirement is defined in Article 7 of the regulations of Horizon Europe, and it is mentioned on the work program. So you will find as well also all the information in the general annexes of the work program 2026. At the moment that you submit your proposal, it is not needed that you have your gender equality plan in place yet. With a self-declaration will be enough, but at the moment of signing the grant agreement, we will check that this valid gender equality plan is in place. So, having explained all the conditions about eligibility, I will quickly go through the PRIMA grant agreement. In case your proposal is selected for funding, we will contact you probably in less than 1 year to sign the contract, the grant agreement. We use a template coming from the Horizon Europe, adapted to PRIMA. In the case of Section 1, it will be directly signed by us as PRIMA, since it is coming from EU funding, and we are canalizing this funding through Section 1. In case it is Section 2, your action will be signed with your different national funding agencies, depending on where is your partner located and established. The grant agreement ensures that the action, it is done in a certain way and as agreed in the contract, and obviously fulfilling all the legal obligations. The structure of the grant agreement, you can find an example in our website, but it is the usual model that it is used under Horizon Europe. The Annex 1 is the description of the action. This is the full proposal that, in case is selected for funding, has been evaluated and selected. The Annex 2 is the budget, and Annex 3 are the accession forms that will be signed by the rest of beneficiaries. Just to remind that the coordinator is signing the grant agreement itself, and the rest of partners, they sign the grant agreement through the Annex 3 accession forms. And this is the example of the workflow that we follow in the call 2024, which is a call that is similar to the call 2026 because it has as well two-stage process. You can see that the calendar is quite tight, but we need to stick to the time to grant of 8 months from call closure to sign the grant agreement. So it is important, in case you are invited to submit your proposal to the second stage, that you are starting to consider that you will need to fulfill this workflow, and also you will need to have prepared a consortium agreement to set the obligations among the partners of the consortium. It is a procedure that we do not enter as PRIMA, but we will request you the proof, a declaration that you have signed a consortium agreement among you inside the consortium. Also, very important to be mentioned that in PRIMA we do not use the Horizon Europe funding and tenders portal, and we will manage directly from the PRIMA Secretariat. The amendments, well, this is this is a slide that may be explained later on in case you have been selected for funding, probably in the PRIMA Projects Day. But in case it is necessary, a contract, a grant agreement may be amended, but this is exceptional. So don't give for granted that we will accept modifications to your action or to the composition of your consortium unless it is needed. And also, if duly justified reason just makes necessary the amendment. In this slide, you can see when it is necessary to make an amendment, when it is not. We are aware that sometimes we are in a gray area and you don't know if it is necessary an amendment or not. In this case, you can contact us and we will inform you how to proceed. As I have said before, we have two types of beneficiaries: the coordinator, who will sign the grant agreement, the rest of beneficiaries of the consortium who will sign the accession forms. You can see here the responsibilities of the coordinator, and on the right, the obligations and responsibility for the rest of beneficiaries. Here, other types of participants that may have your action. In addition to the coordinator and beneficiaries, you can have affiliated entities, associated partners, and also subcontractors. And I would like to finalize my presentation reminding something relevant about subcontracting. You may subcontract only limited and not core tasks. And when selecting these subcontractors, you must ensure best value for money and avoid conflicts of interest. So you cannot decide directly to whom you will subcontract. You will need to justify that you are subcontracting these non-core tasks to someone who ensures the best value for money principle. And this is it. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a little bit more than 10 minutes, but as long as you have cleared the eligible conditions, your proposals will be deemed eligible and will go to evaluation. And I wish you very good luck, and I hope to see you in less than 1 year to contact you and to start the proceeding for selecting your proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julia. Well, in fact, it was a little bit more than 15 minutes, not that.
I'm sorry.
We understand the passion that you want to share as much information as possible with the applicants, and this is good also for them to plan ahead the journey for their application. We move directly now to our marketing officer to share some very interesting information about KPIs. So I'll give the floor to Itzel.
Thank you, Omar. I think I need to wait a little bit until we have my presentation. But well, just to move forward, Itzel Lopez, PRIMA Monitoring Officer in PRIMA, and today I will guide you through the KPIs framework and the impact pathway. Sorry, so In this presentation, we highlight several impact-related aspects for you to consider when you're preparing your proposal, particularly when you're describing how your project could contribute to the expected outcomes outlined in the call text, the potential scale and significance of this contribution, and the measures planned to maximize these impacts in the long term. For a better understanding of how to move from results to impact, the upcoming slides, we will be covering the following content. The pathway towards impact, when we will ask what are the steps needed to transition from results to long-term impact, the expected outcomes, how to align your project results with the expected outcomes mentioned in the work program and in the call text, and key performance indicators, how to measure the results and support your impact narrative. Before moving forward, let us briefly explain some important concepts for this framework. The first concept we have is the outputs, which are the items directly produced by the project's activities and are typically produced within the short term. Within the group of outputs, some of them may lead us to identify key exploitable results, or known as CARES. CARES are the results with high potential to be exploited, meaning that it can be used by or produce benefits for a certain target group. In a medium term, the effects of an intervention activities and outputs can be defined as outcomes. The last concept frames the effect produced by an intervention in the long term. And these impacts have a nature that can be positive or negative, primary or secondary, directly or indirectly, intended or unintended. So moving forward this logical sequence, the first step is to identify which results the project will deliver, meaning in the short term. This may include new technologies, new methodologies, new knowledge, new service, or improvements in processes. Then the second step is to question, how will this result lead to the outcomes and meet the expected impact? Every call topic contains a section outlining the expected outcomes, which describes the type of change or benefit, thank you, or benefit anticipated through the use of project results. To find the expected outcomes, please refer to the topic of your interest within the call text or the work program. Each topic describes the expected outcomes in the paragraph located just right after the the table called general conditions. I mean this in the work program and in the call text. Oh, sorry. Some subsequent steps focus on activities required to disseminate, communicate, and exploit the results, those outcomes in this case, to achieve the long-term impact within the PRIMA main areas of impact. We know that at this stage, it's too soon to consider this, but we would like to have you the full picture for you to construct your impact narrative. Here we have a broad example of, to identify outcomes, outputs, and the impact in the long term. This example, let's say that we will deliver a process improvement in the supply chain workflow, including optimization of resource use. This is the short-term output. Then, in a medium term, the effects will be, for instance, more efficient purchasing procedures, reduced waste and duplication, better price negotiations enabled to aggregated demand and data transparency. And this will be directly increase the operational efficiency and margins of participating small businesses, strengthening their competitiveness So here you will identify, of course, your target group, as it says in this example, and then you will look beyond the project's lifetime, meaning in the long term, in this example, this optimized process expects to generate sustained economic benefits to small business partners, including higher profitability and business growth. And another example of this impacts in the long term will be strengthen the local entrepreneurial ecosystem by fostering innovations and scalability. This not only creates at least 3 new startups, which you will also have to identify in your project and proposal, and align this with the PRIMA economic impact area in this example. It also will be linked to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, in this case with the goal number 8, by providing inclusive economic growth and supporting small enterprises, and goal number 12, by improving resource efficiency and reducing waste in the supply chain. PRIMA has established a structured set of key performance indicators, KPIs, to assess the performance not only of the projects, but also the program. As you can see in this table, the main areas of impact are economic and technological impact, with their indicators, economic and technological, scientific impact with its scientific indicators, and the societal impact with 3 societal indicators, environmental indicators, and policy and governance indicators. Here, in economic and technological impact, the indicators clusters reflect the project's contribution to economic growth, while the technological indicators are employed to assess the development of new tools and digital platforms, as well as to track progression along the TRL scale. Scientific impact. Here we have impact focused on quantifying the number of specific publications, data sets, or individual trained. The KPI societal impact under the societal impact are grouped under environmental indicators, which can be the metrics to measure water use efficiency, energy efficiency, carbon footprint reduction. And on the other hand, we have societal indicators, which measure marginalized people benefiting from your project, number of social innovations, and number of SDGs addressed by your project. And finally, policy and governance indicators, which measure policy briefs generated by the project, number of water governance approaches implemented, or the policies linked to welfare nexus approach. So we have seen and explained earlier by my colleagues, the application form part 2 is where you will have to provide a narrative of the impact of your project. Here in the number 2 impact, just the project pathways towards impact for this first stage. Here we have a list of recommendations for you to consider while you construct your narrative. Please be specific. Describe your unique contribution to the topic outcomes, propose clear and quantifiable results, categorize those outcomes and impacts. As you saw, we have these 3 main areas of impact, and link those KPIs you will select with your results proposed and the SDGs. Please avoid, we highlight this, please avoid broad and general ideas without measurable indicators. So here, this again, these requirements we have for this call is to select at least 3 PRIMA KPIs. When relevant, please include 1 KPI from each KPI category. And in case of you don't have a KPI related to your proposal, you can also propose your own KPI in case of emerging or interdisciplinary research areas, community-led or place-based innovation, region-specific socioeconomic or environmental outcomes not represented in the standard KPIs. So if you don't find a KPI that represents your proposal, you can also propose one. And remember to link these KPIs to the SDGs and the European Union policies. For more details of our KPIs, PRIMA KPIs, we encourage you to go to our website and take a look at the KPI handbook, where you will find examples and a clear definition of each of one of them. Thank you very much for your attention, and this is it from my side.
Thank you so much, Itzel. It was an excellent and very interesting presentation, especially highlighting the impact pathway through the KPIs, especially the social and economic impact of the projects funded under the PRIMA program. And now we move to the last presentation, one of the most, again, important presentations, how to create a budget for the PRIMA program. You'll be managing funds, so all of you will be doing that. So our financial manager, Pau, will be sharing the information that you may need at this stage, and later on will be regarding the financial issues of the budget under the PRIMA program. So, Pau, please.
Thank you, Omar. Good afternoon to you all. I hope you have enough energy to listen for 10 minutes for the last important highlights of our Infoday. So I will briefly debrief on the following points, just remind how to prepare the budget in terms of which costs are eligible. Then we will move to each cost category, because sometimes there are many doubts how to prepare the budget, how to calculate it. Then we will move to the exchange rate, which is an important issue for the South Mediterranean partners. And then a quick overview, what will be, in case you are selected, how you have to keep the records, and which are the checks and audits, and finally, some inputs for the reporting that you will do on the project. So as you know, we follow the Horizon Europe rules. So all the costs that you report must be connected with the Annex 1, which will be the description of the action that you will assess in the stage 2, the full document of 50 pages. So all the costs should be identifiable and verifiable, and very important, that only incurred by the beneficiary who has prepared the budget. Okay, so in many occasions we find that sometimes the beneficiary has a subsidiary or belongs to a mother company, and then they declare costs. So please assure that when you prepare the budget, all the costs are belonging to the beneficiary who will participate. Okay. Also, that remind that you must respect the national law on taxes, labor, and social security, and all the costs must be reasonable and comply with the principle of sound financial management. Also, please, when you prepare the budget, take in consideration the reporting period. Now, when you will report, you know that PRIMA will ask for 2 reporting periods, but it's important that you assess the cost for each reporting period, because then it would be much easier at the time of the reporting. Okay? Then you have the 3 options to report the cost: actual unit at flat rate. Flat rate, as you know, is only for the indirect cost, and usually most of the costs are reported as actual cost. Here there is a pyramid of the hierarchy of rules. As you know, we fulfill the Horizon Europe rule, and you have to fulfill all the criteria that are established in terms of grants, national and special eligibility. and for each cost category. We always recommend when you draft the budget to check the annotated model grant agreement, which is available in our website using this URL, or you can Google it easily, where it explains article by article which are the situations or examples that you may face in case you have doubts to calculate or to understand better the eligibility of each cost category. Okay. For personal cost, which so far is the most important cost category, as you know, you have to calculate the daily rate for each employee which will participate in the call. Okay. So the rule to calculate the personal cost is a simple multiplication, which multiplies the daily rate for the days that the employee has declared in the reporting period. Okay. So you have to calculate the daily rate, dividing the total eligible personal cost, which include the gross salary, the social security contribution, plus other taxes, divided by the maximum declarable day equivalent over the reporting period. Okay, this is important that you calculate for each reporting period. Okay, once you have this daily rate, you multiply by the days worked. Remember that you must round it at half day or unit day. This is the rule. And then you will have the calculation for each employee which will participate. Okay, and remember that this is for each reporting period and for each employee. Okay, this is not important at the stage of preparing the budget, but remember that all the employees must report and time records, okay, in order to assess that the hours that they have worked are supported and well signed by themselves, okay? So this would be very important in case you are selected, but remember that the timesheets are mandatory. For the purchase cost, at the time of preparing the budget, it's important that you must fulfill the travel policy that already applies in your organization, okay? So please double check that your organizations have a clear policy where it specifies the per diem, how you declare the cost when you travel outside your country or in a Europe mission. And also remember that they have to report as actual cost, okay? Usual errors or mistakes that we find out in the reporting period, that there is no clear link with the action. So please check that the travels that you are planning are well linked and that can be justified during the implementation of the project, okay? Also that you need supporting documents, okay? So meaning tickets, pictures, agenda, okay? So whenever you will incur the cost, this cost should be well supported. For other goods, works, and services, and it has been mentioned, you must follow the best value for money, so you cannot select without a tender or a procedure, internal procedure. They should be linked for the action, and please differentiate when it's an external service or a subcontracting, okay? Because this is important in terms of preparing the budget in each cost category. For equipment, and this is a very usual question, remember that only depreciation costs are eligible, okay? So you must calculate, I will use this asset for certain time of the action and for certain percentage during the day of the project. So this calculation should be added in the budget. However, there are some prototypes or pilot which can be 100% eligible if they are foreseen in the grant agreement, if they are included in the budget, and all the eligibility criteria are fulfilled. So please double check when you prepare your budget among the consortium members, which are the equipment costs that will be incurred among all of them. Because sometimes there are many errors. There is a misunderstanding on whether I put a percentage, whether I put the 100%. And it's good that you prepare well and you assess if it's one case or the other. The GA already foresee both cases. As a general rule, is the depreciation, I repeat, but if need be, there are some exceptions which foresee that you can declare 100% of the cost. The exchange rates. As you know, you have to report and prepare the budget in euro. Okay, so for the euro countries, no problem. But however, for the southern countries, there are rules that you must respect once you report the reporting period 1 and the final report. Okay, to prepare the budget, I would recommend to use the most actual exchange rate. Okay, you cannot foresee the exchange rate in 3 years in advance. However, I would recommend to have the latest data and then convert it. There are some countries, unfortunately, that will suffer some variations during the 3 years. We are aware. However, the variation of the currency is not an eligible expense. So what we recommend, and we always recommend to the funded projects, is that once they are funded, they open a euro account so they could keep as many euro in their account and to prevent to have a devaluation of the money received by PRIMA. Okay, but at the time of preparing the budget, please double check that you apply the correct exchange rate, just to avoid errors that we can identify at the time of the grant agreement signature. Also, this is just to advance that at the exchange rate calculation, you must fulfill it at the reporting period. You must fulfill using the 2 links that the grant agreement already foresees. Okay, and as I already mentioned, we really kindly recommend to open a euro account if it's possible to prevent the possible devaluation. Okay, let's move to the budget cost transfer. As you know, the grant agreement already foresees some maneuver at the time of the budget. So once we sign the grant agreement, we are aware, and the articles already foresee that some changes can be applied during the implementation. Okay, so the budget that you will prepare, the full budget that you will prepare, the ones who will be invited for stage 2, can be modified, but you must respect some rules that we can anticipate now. But always it would be the coordinator who would be the one who has to address to the PRIMA officer and the PRIMA financial officer, and we will assess if this transfer would be accepted or not. Okay, but please do an accurate budget as much as you can. But however, we are confident that you are flexible and you can do some changes during the implementation of the action. Keeping records, this is just to prepare yourself in case you are funded, that you will have to keep records, because this is mandatory for our checks and audits that can be done up to 5 years until the project is over. Okay, so please, all the contracts that you may prepare during this phase of preparing the budget, keep all the documents, because it would be important in case you are requested for them. Checks and audits, as you know, we are a European program, so we follow the same structure and the same policy. We will do some checks during the implementation of the project, and some projects will be audited either the midterm or the final term. Okay, here there is a list of the most common errors, which I think I will skip it because now we are focused on the budget preparation. But just that you are familiar with the audits and checks, so we recommend to follow a strict policy on the reporting and keeping the documents. Finally, as it has been explained, we don't have the EC portal, so we will have our monitoring tool, which is called MEL. You will be asked to report on the technical part and on the financial twice during the implementation, at the midterm and the final. And also from the Section 1 projects, we always request as well all the payments that all the coordinators will do to the partners. Okay, so it's important that all this information would have to be filled in the mail just to complete all the obligations of the program. Very important. Now it's not you have to prepare yourself, but to respect the times of the submission and the 60 days. And yeah, this is all what I would like to explain. Just to conclude, I would like to remind you that when you will prepare the consortium, and it would be especially in the second stage, you will be asked for the peak number. Most of the applicants would have a peak validated. However, the ones who have a peak declared, because it's the first time that they apply to European funds, PRIMA will, if you are selected for funding, PRIMA will request you to have enough information on the legal and financial point of view to assess your participation on the consortium. Okay, so please, at the time of preparing the consortium at the coordination level, please check at this stage which is the status of each participant, because it's important that they are familiar and they have the PIC number, and if not the case, ask which is the current situation in terms of legal, which was funded recently, if they have enough financial resources, because we check deeply at the time of the signature of the grant agreement. This is it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the presentation and also mine and the rest of the colleagues. Good luck for you all. Thank you. Back to you, Omar.
Thank you so much, Pau. It was really interesting and a very detailed information, although it's financial, but I mean, it's like attention-grabbing information. Okay, as foreseen in our agenda, we have this Q&A session, and here, as we announced at the beginning, that this option was on, and our project officers have been trying to answer all questions that have been received, and I say that mostly all questions have been answered. If you still have or you still think that your question has not been addressed directly, maybe because it's very specific, topic specific, so please refer to the project officer under that thematic area, and they will be glad to help and assist and further clarify the concern. So with this, just two quick or just a couple of comments before, or advices before we conclude the day. I would strongly encourage everyone considering to apply to PRIMA to refer to their national contact points and establish solid relations and contact with their national contact points, as mentioned also by the project officers, to read carefully the content of the animal work program and the whole text in order to understand what we are expecting and how to prepare your proposal. Of course, we are available. This information, again, will be available on our website, our YouTube channel. We are all available for any questions that you may have. Thank you so much for your participation and for being with us today and for your interest in the PRIMA program. I'll give the final floor of the final words to our director, Octavi. Thanks again, and hope to see you again in our next calls. Octavi.
Thank you very much, Omar, for your words, and I'd like to use the opportunity to thank all the staff of PRIMA, those you have seen, those you didn't see, but who have been working very hard to make this event happening in a very smooth way. And well, I don't want to wish luck, because it is not luck will decide whether you are selected for funding or not, but to prepare good proposals. And I hope that what you heard today is useful for you to prepare sound and very good proposals. Thank you very much. And again, as Omar said, if you still have questions, please refer to the project officers, who will be more than happy to try to answer all your concerns and doubts. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Robin.
Bye.